Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, October 17th. Clerk, would you lead us in the pledge of the flag?
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we've got plenty of topics on the agenda tonight. So starting off at 6:30, Organization Pledge of Allegiance, read mail. 6:35, we'll have an update from MEPC on the Hazard Mitigation Plan, draft plan. 7 o'clock, 4 different items under departments. Number 1, Town Clerk for the presidential state election warrant. B, change it up there, Highway, Water, Nagog Hill Road reconstruction, water main replacement. C, Highway, plowing, sanding, private ways. D, accept gifts from DCU, Fire, and Police Department. 7:25, public input, member updates, and selectmen goal updates. 7:30, 2 things under the November 16th, 2016 special town meeting. 1, adopt article recommendations, and 2, schedule special selectmen meeting to finalize the recommendations. 8 o'clock, Economic Development Incentive Program. TIF related, EDIP/TIF letter of intent for Harvard Road. B, call November 16th special town meeting for number 2 for 7:30 p.m. 8:15, public hearing, medical marijuana cultivation site applicants host community agreements. 9, town administrator, assistant town administrator, procurement of supplies and services for introduced policy amendment. 9:10, minutes approval, and 9:15, we have an executive session. All right, Mr. Bergman, let's see what the mail
Madam
has.
Chair, just a couple of items in the mail packet. We have included the report from Moody's Investor Services announcing the upgrade of the town of Littleton's bond rating from AA2 to AA1. That's one notch up, one notch higher. It's still below the level of AAA for Moody's. We have a AAA rating on Standard & Poor's. Moody's is a little tougher. They expect community to have a larger tax base in order to qualify for the top rating. So one of the things we could do to achieve the highest rating is to expand the tax base. So,
Which I like.
so there you go. But it's welcome news. Moody's has not taken a look at us in a serious way for the last 10 years. Bonnie and I, Bonnie's been here that long, and the last time Moody's really reviewed us was 10 years ago. And so on their own motion, they needed to upgrade their rating of our community. We'll continue to use Standard & Poor's when we do bond issues, but Moody's has done a rating, and we're happy to get the upgrade, and I thought it was a good report card
That's awesome.
that they gave. Another item that we received by email, we have written resignation now from Tom Mann from the Conservation Commission. So I want to thank Tom for his service to the town and to the commission, and per your policy, we'll be advertising for a month to fill that vacancy.
Can we get the CONSCOM, he was also part of the Ag Working Group, to just get a note out to them to have another appointment?
Sure.
I think Andrew was the alternate,
Yep,
but they have 2 seats on it, so
good call.
Will do.
appreciate that.
Okay, so that was it.
All right. We're still on track. Hazard mitigation plan. So we have MEPC here, who's going to give us an update on what the draft plan is.
We have Martin Pillsbury and Ann Herbst here from MAPC. I'm going to give Martin the official, the badge of rank here. If you press this button, it goes forward, and that one goes reverse. But
Okay.
don't press that one.
Top one. That thing's loud.
It just
Press
blows
the
up
bottom
everything.
Whatever you do.
You can stand if you
Okay.
like, or if you like to sit at the table, you're welcome to pull up.
Thank you very much to the board and to Keith for having us tonight. I know you have a busy meeting. We are here to give you an update on the process of developing a natural hazards mitigation plan for the town. The town has such a plan in place, as Keith mentioned earlier, but it needs to be renewed every 5 years according to the standards from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is the agency that oversees this kind of a process. So as your regional planning agency, MAPC has been providing technical assistance under a grant from the town, under a contract with the town to do this as technical assistance work, to work through developing the new plan for the town, the renewal of your older plan. I have with me today here Ann Herbst, who's a senior environmental planner, who's really been the one who's shepherding, putting the plan together. I'm Martin Pillsbury, the director of the Environmental Services Department of MAPC. So I'm going to give you a brief run-through, but feel free to ask any questions along the way. Keep it informal, and we could have the questions at the end if you still have time for that as well. So why is the town doing this plan? First of all, it's part of a federal program through FEMA. The Federal Disaster Mitigation Act of the year 2000 established this back then as a new program to help communities across the country take proactive action to not only to respond to hazards after they've occurred, but before they occur, to do everything you can as a community to make yourself less vulnerable and more resilient to different kinds of natural hazards. This plan will now update the current plan you have in place, which is expiring, and will keep you in good stead with FEMA in terms of eligibility to apply for grants from that agency, where having this plan is one of the requirements.
And when does our current plan expire?
This year.
This year?
Yeah, sometime this year.
Sometime this
So this is a plan that covers all categories of natural hazards. You have other plans in place already that deal with other kinds of hazards like chemical spills and fires and that sort of thing. This is a sort of a different sort of plan that until this program was established a few years ago, there really wasn't a way of looking comprehensively at natural hazards and what it is you could do to mitigate their at risk. So that's the point of these. It deals with a whole host of hazards. Flooding is the most common one in most communities, but we also look at high winds that might result from hurricanes or tornadoes, which we've had recently, right? I mean, we used to say we never get tornadoes until one hit Concord, right? And Central Mass, and I mean, Revere had one a couple of years. I mean, suddenly we're seeing these things that we're not in Kansas anymore, sort of thing. Winter
like you are.
storms, snow and ice. We certainly get winter storms after the winter of a year ago.
Sure.
If we forgot, we've got a nasty reminder of that. Earthquakes, landslides. Now, again, these are low probability events in this region of the world, but they're not zero probability.
But we're at on a fault line, we get earthquakes here.
You get actually more earthquakes here, low magnitude, unfortunately, but more than other communities in the region, that's right. Extreme temperatures, whether they be hots or colds, brush fires, which when you're talking, and then I also mentioned drought, which again is one of those things that usually when we've done these plans in recent years, we said, yeah, drought, another thing that rarely ever occurs. Well, guess what? As you well know, we're in the midst of a historic drought this year. And brush fires can play into that because it makes the landscape more susceptible. So all of these hazards are something that in one way or the other may affect the community. Some have a higher risk than others, and that's what we do. We look at the impact that it might have on the community. So what is hazard mitigation? That's the point of these plans, the mitigation. Definition that FEMA often uses is to permanently reduce or prevent loss of life, injuries, and property damage by using long-term strategies. And we ask these two questions. What preventative actions, emphasis on preventative actions before a hazard happens, what preventative actions are being taken now already in the community? Because you've dealt with all of these hazards over the years. It's not as if you have nothing going on. You have many measures in place already, and we sort of take stock of those in this plan as a starting point. And then once we know what you have in place already for mitigation, we say, where are the gaps? Where are the things that could be improved and strengthened to give you even more mitigation? So what additional actions can the community take? And that's kind of the basic outlier of the plan. Kind of the underlying reason that FEMA developed this program back in 2000 is that we've seen many places in the country, maybe not so much in this town, but in many places, this cycle of disaster, rebuild, which when you say rebuild, think dollars, think often federal dollars and taxpayers' dollars as well as private companies' dollars. Another disaster, another rebuild. In some places, it seemed like an endless cycle. They're trying to break this cycle or slow this down as much as possible by intervening and having more preventative, proactive approaches that if, the thing we can't stop is the storms may come, but if there are things we can do in our communities to put ourselves less in harm's way, when those natural events do occur.
Where's that photo? It looks like my old neighborhood in Situate. Is that,
Oh, no, that's actually Cohasset, you're close.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm kidding, I don't, it could be, I don't
Maybe
know.
Hull, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that photo came from originally.
Looks too
So
familiar.
what's the process we use to go through developing the plan for the town? First of all, as I mentioned, MAPC is a regional planning agency. We have done this work originally for the town's last plan and for many other communities. We are providing technical assistance to the town. The town coordinates through a local hazard mitigation team. We have here today several members of the team, the chief and a few other members who have been working with us, and all kudos to the team because this plan wouldn't happen. MAPC can't come in as an outside assistant and do anything meaningful unless we get a lot of participation from the different department heads and boards and commissions that know the town, have the knowledge of the local town situation that goes into the plan. So we sort of help them channel that information into a format that's required by FEMA, but then it's populated with data and information that's very customized to the town, given the input we have from the team. During the process, we hold 2 public meetings, the first of which was held last, I think it was February, and this will be the second one today, right now. Basically, at this point, we have a draft plan that's been put together with all the input from the local committee. And that draft plan is up, and I'll show you later on this presentation, a link, it's on the town's website. And any of the other boards, any of the citizens in general in the town are interested can take a look at the plan, and if they have any comments, they can be submitted to us as we finalize that draft plan. Once it's finalized in the next few weeks, we will then submit the plan to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, which is the state level group compared to FEMA, which is the federal. It actually goes through a 2-stage review, first by MEMA at the state level, and then by FEMA at the federal level before it comes back for final approval. And I'll talk a little bit more detail about that. So let's look at a little bit what goes into the plan, sort of what is the main content. The main point is to start by identifying what are those hazards, and to the extent that we can be specific about mapping them and characterizing them to this particular town. We start with higher level data, like there is a state mitigation plan that gives broad characterization, and then we work with the local team to put a local flavor on some of those issues. So if we say that flooding is an issue in these river basins in general, where does it actually flood specifically? And then that gets put on maps, and we describe that and maybe the history of that and what degree of magnitude, and other hazards. Other areas where there's brush fire hazards, other areas where you have other concerns for winter, all of those hazards we talk about. We gather that information from the team, who have the local knowledge. We put that onto a map, which is digitized into a GIS overlay, which, by the way, then could be a useful layer of mapping that you could use in other planning that you do as a town as well. That may be the next time you do an open space plan or a comprehensive master plan. That's information that can now be combined with other things and be useful to you as well. But it's the guts of this kind of a hazard mitigation plan.
And you mentioned it, but just to let the folks on, that are watching know that the local team you've got is great. So you have both chiefs, both deputy chiefs, Jim Clyde, our Highway Operations Department Manager, Scott Edwards of Littleton Electric and Water, representation from Board of Health, Conservation. So it's a
Very
really good
comprehensive,
knowledgeable.
and everyone has pulled together and
Aaron, too.
participated and put into the plan. So I want to say that you have a very good team working in this town for you here. Hazard identification. So then basically we've mapped out where some of these flooding areas are, where are the areas with geologic hazards, et cetera, et cetera. So then we have a kind of a picture of what's the challenge? What are the threats that face the community? Another way of looking at it, this one example, the most recent large sort of significant flooding event was back 6 years ago or so in 2010. We actually go in and find the hydrologic records. This is from the United States Geologic Survey's flow monitoring, and they have gauges to gauge the flow in a number of rivers. Now, there's not a gauge in every town. We don't actually have one in Littleton, but the nearest one in the same watershed that you see here on the Neshoba Brook nearby enacted. And this was a large-scale rain event that covered the whole state, so the same relationship of peak flows during a few days in March and April would apply to the rivers and streams you see here. And this is really a fairly historic flood in recent years, just as an example. Other hazards, we look at geologic hazards, wind and snow. We look at the record, how often have you had blizzards that were declared disasters? How often have we had hurricanes come through this state? Of course, these are larger scale events that don't not only affect this town, but affect the whole region, the whole state, in some cases all of New England. And we document that sort of pattern, that history, and how frequent and how severe are those kind of events. We look at locally identified, and this is critical, this is where we put the local flavor on it. We look at locally identified hazard areas. Where within the town do we actually have drainage issues that cause localized flooding? Where do we have, in this case, a few other things were identified by the team. Some areas where there's drifting snow and winter storms, some areas where there may be brush fire potential. Those are actually outlined. You see those circles on the map. Those are outlined and they're described in the plan. Each one you see on the map has a short list of where they are and what's going on in those spots. And then we look at areas of potential future development. So we know you have a land use pattern in place now, and some of that land use may be in areas subject to some of these hazards, some not. And then where is new development coming into town? And to what degree is any of that new development potentially within a flood zone or another hazard area? This was a list that the town, again, the local team developed information on developments that were, it's a sort of a snapshot in time of what was coming in either as proposed new development or planned as at the point we're putting the plan together. That's always, of course, going to be rolling and changing as the years go by, and that's something that it's important that you keep an eye on this as time goes by as well, and not just look at this once every 5 years.
So there was, if I may, Madam Chair, so the FEMA flood plan that came out probably, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, somewhere around there, is incorporated into this?
Yes.
Into this plan. If there were, I know there's no way to change it, but if there were issues with some residents saying, I don't want to be in the floodplain because X, Y, and Z, I'm far enough away, is there an opportunity to at least put that in this document?
This plan isn't about that, but the FEMA has its own process
Okay.
for potentially amending or changing the floodplain maps. They
Okay.
can be petitioned, and if a landowner or whoever is affected by a line on the map that they believe is not accurate or correct, they can bring information forward and ask for an amendment or a change to that. That's a whole separate process outside of doing this plan, but there are avenues to do that. I will say, it's not easy. You have to bring some good documentation of the local hydrology that sort of trumps what they might have had there. They do their mapping on hydrologic models that are sort of regional in scale, and if you can come up with a refined local piece of information, you may have a chance to show that. You'd have to kind of make that kind of a showing.
I recall a few years ago, one of the issues was that the model that that the FEMA was using for some coastal communities was based on, I don't know, California or something. It was based on the wrong geographic area.
Right.
And so, there was an effort, I think successful, to have that,
Right.
those relooked at.
Some of the most significant questions that got raised were along the coastal communities.
Yeah.
They have a whole special set of mapping to do with what they call the velocity zone and how the ocean waves. So obviously, unless climate change gets a lot worse, you're not going to have that problem here. And there were some appeals and some changes that were made based on that, but it's a long, drawn-out process. It takes a couple of years, so it's not easy to get into, but it's possible. Absolutely.
We're going to be the place that people evacuate to when they leave.
You're the uplands, you're the high ground. In fact, you have less, even with rivers and streams, I will say, this town has less flooding threat than most of the even surrounding towns like Concord and others we're working with. You just seem to be at the high spot in the natural geography. In general, you're sort of like in a very fortunate location. Not that there's no flooding, but it's not as significant or widespread as it is in many of your neighboring towns. So that's true. One of the things we look at is, you see on this slide, identifying critical facilities. So what are the pieces, what are the sites and facilities in the town that would be most critical to be aware of and to be, if they are at risk of any of these hazards? So you start with the obvious, where's the police and fire and operations center? Where's the schools? Where are there locations where there are populations that could be at risk? Nursing homes, daycare centers, hospitals, et cetera. So you look for a number of these kind of things, and we get the local team again to help us pinpoint where they are. We actually map them, they're all mapped out, and there's an inventory, a spreadsheet that goes along with that map that describes where these sites are, places of assembly, critical infrastructure like dams and that sort of thing. It's a whole host of different things. There are actually 63 of these different critical sites that have been identified on the map, and you can see this example here is what the map looks like in small scale. The maps can be made available at a larger scale, and you can also look at them electronically and blow them up on your screen and see them in more detail. Then that earlier piece I mentioned about sort of taking stock of what you have in place already as a starting point for mitigation. We run through a kind of an analysis of what you have in place already under the different kinds of hazards. What does the town have in place already? And you have quite a lot. This list, and I'm not going to, too much to read off, but you can see clearly by the hazard category, by flood, by wind, by winter, by brush fire, et cetera, the town has various measures on the books and various programs in place already to help address these. So you are nowhere near starting from a blank slate here. You have a lot going on. The question is, are there some additional things you can do? And here's where we looked in the plan and worked with the team and worked through some ideas for where you could have some additional measures. And this is at the heart of the plan. These would be the recommended mitigation measures that will be in the plan. And again, they're classified by the type of hazard. So this first list you see here are flooding and drainage related issues. Some of them might be actually physical infrastructure, like a drainage improvement project. Others might be changes to regulations that would have a long-term effect of reducing the threat of flooding by managing land use in a different kind of way. Things like how you manage stormwater to reduce the overland flow and that sort of thing. By the way, now that you are also looking at stormwater regulation under a whole other silo, the so-called MS4 stormwater permit, some of these measures that would benefit you in this plan would also benefit your MS4 permit. So you'll get some double benefits from looking at some of these measures here. Some of the other measures we looked at, some measures that could address brush fires, things like maintaining some access roads into some of the back country that could be hard to get into if you had to put out a fire. And then just, again, not all structural or physical. It might sometimes be just better education for folks about, the hazards and any kind of burning or maintaining vegetation around your house and that sort of thing. High winds, one particular measure was mentioned by the emergency management folks is one thing very specific, but it sounds like it could be pretty critical, installing a fiber backup to the radio system between police and Cedar Hill Tower. So there's a cane in a high wind, if some of that communication, that standard communication based on radio was to go down, you would have a hard backup to that, which would be much less vulnerable to any damage and maintain your critical emergency management communication. So these are a few you can see it's a mix of different kinds of measures. Some of them are projects, some of them are regulations, some of them are public education. Whatever is the most appropriate for that type of hazard and for what you have in place already. So that's kind of an overview of what the plan will have in it. The process from here, now that we have a draft plan, is that actually this draft plan is up on the town's website. It's open for folks to look at it throughout the town. And in fact, we're saying it's open for public comment until October 31st, the end of the month. And comments can be emailed in. When people go on the website, they'll see that. And at the end of this, I'm going to put the link up where that is on the town website. So what will happen once that draft plan is completed is that we will submit it to MEMA, the Mass Emergency Management Agency. They will review it. If they have any comments, questions, revisions, they will ask us to make those, which we will do, and then it will go to the second phase, which is FEMA, Federal Emergency Management. They will do the same thing, review it, possibly give us questions or revisions. If so, we'll respond to them. Once the plan has then been reviewed by FEMA and they feel the content meets their requirements, they will issue to the town what they call approval pending adoption. Means that the plan content is approved, but there's one procedural remaining step, and that is the town needs to adopt the plan. And actually, when I say the town, it's this board that would take a vote at that point to adopt the plan. There's a standard one-page resolution, be by all rights, we have this plan, and therefore resolve we adopt this plan, sort of thing. Tonight, we're not here to ask you for taking any formal actions for information, but when it comes back, after it's been approved by FEMA, there will be a request for you to take a look at that and adopt the plan. FEMA wants to make sure that a plan, once you've gone through all this process, that the official, elected officials in the town have actually put their stamp of approval on the plan and says, yes, this is our plan, we adopt it on behalf of the town. So they don't want the plan to be something that just gets maybe done by a lot of good, smart people, but then gets set aside and forgotten about. So that's their requirement, that the chief elected officials of the community, with the very last step, will adopt the plan, and then FEMA will issue your final approval, and this new plan will have its own 5-year life from that point. During that 5 years,
From the time of their approval or?
the time of their final
the
approval.
expiration of the
From the time
existing?
of their final approval.
Gotcha.
Right, so the clock will reset when they have that final approval and start from that point on. During that time, it's something that we don't want you to forget about it for the next 5 years. It's something that, and neither does FEMA, that you have this as a living plan, but conditions change over time, over that 5 years. And some of the things you have in the plan as recommended measures may come up for implementation. Some may take longer to do. If they're costly items, that's fine. But just to monitor the progress, check in from time to time, and we set up a process in the plan for the way in which the town can do that, to keep having someone in the town who's managing to oversee this through this local team on an occasional basis, and then to have a midterm survey at year 3 out of the 5, how are we doing, what's still to be done, and then begin to think about your next update in year 4, because there's lead time in actually building up to doing this, and then conduct your next update. So that's just looking ahead 5 years, once we have this plan in place, how that would proceed to implement the plan. And there is the final slide, and this has the location on the town's website, which is www.littletonmass.org/reports-plans. And you can see that plan online there, and you can send comments in. We're asking folks if they can do that by the end of the month on the 31st to Ann Herbst, which her email is there, aherbst@mapc.org. And with that, I'd open if you have the time for it. I'd be glad to entertain any further questions or support.
No, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for your efficiency in going through that. Very well done. So
Thank
thank you there. And board, any questions? I don't know that I have any questions.
I have one. On one of the slides, I saw something to do with management of beavers. Is there any other wildlife element relative to natural hazards?
Nothing came
That's
up.
addressed?
Nothing came up in terms of the input we got from the community. Beavers is a perennial problem in every town we talk to out
Sure.
this way. And your options are somewhat limited because of, wildlife protection measures to do something about them. But there are certain measures that can be looked at. But other wildlife, from a point of view of natural hazards, no.
Versus
I mean,
nuisance.
there's other issues around wildlife, but strictly as the reason, of course, they're so important is because they can exacerbate the flooding problem. Because they actually, that's what they do. They build dams, they change the natural hydrology. Other than human beings, they change the natural environment, probably almost as much as we do in some cases, or more in some places. And that now has an impact on the town, because areas that never used to flood might start to flood. It kind of depends on where they put them and how much they build them and et cetera, but it could end up flooding areas that are developed, or roads and highways and infrastructure. It really is very site-specific.
Well, and being on Long Lake Neighborhood Association, they actually talked about, I forget what it's called, but kind of making a hole in one of those dams to reduce the water levels. So I guess we all just needed, when it comes to this one in particular, stay in contact with the Lake Association of the
Yes.
lake that you're targeting, because they may already be
Right.
thinking in a similar
Right.
direction.
And that's a good example of wanting to see input from the community, even beyond where the boards and commissions that we've already worked with. If there are folks in the community who have dealt with or struggled with some of these issues locally and maybe have some ideas for approaches to do this.
Yeah, some
we're-
very
we're-
knowledgeable
we're-
folks on those
We're glad
type of
to
boards. Yeah.
reflect that in the plan as well,
That'd
or
be
reference
great.
that
Okay,
in any
I
way.
might
yeah.
shoot a little note over to them to take a look at this. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I know Mass Wildlife has addressed, in other communities, has addressed all the population of deer or turkeys or.
Those are
so-
wildlife issues, but they don't tend to end up being hazard mitigation issues per se. Yeah, exactly. There are issues, you're right.
I just have one question. Once this gets approved, does it impact the insurances for
No,
for the
this
residents
does not
in
impact
town?
the insurance. What this impacts is the town's ability to apply for grants, however,
Okay.
under FEMA's mitigation program to actually do a project. So if you had a mitigation of drainage project, you needed to upscale a culvert or put in a new drainage system somewhere, that could be a project you could apply to FEMA for funding. And the prerequisite to even apply for that funding is that you have one of these plans in place.
Gotcha.
And approved by FEMA, right.
So it'd be a proactive grant versus a reactive.
Exactly. That's what we mean by a mitigation grant. So, okay, let's take care of this now, so when the storm comes, it will cause less damage. Exactly.
Any questions?
Just curious whether the department heads have any input. I know you had a role in putting some of this together, whether you had any comments on that, Chief, Jim?
Gary?
We did have a few meetings with it, and, everybody gave their input as we went through this process to, address some of the past issues, some of the changing growth that we've had in town, and how that could potentially affect things. But I think just the overall knowledge between all the department heads being in town for the amount of time that everybody's been here. It was good to have a history that went along with some of the issues that we've seen in the past and how they could potentially relate moving forward. For the
He's
next
being
few
modest,
years.
it was more than a few meetings. We got invaluable input from all of these folks and the others who aren't here tonight. And again, I want to thank them for their, participation. The plan wouldn't be what it is without them.
Historical knowledge, like,
There's no- there's no
Brzezinski says,
Yeah.
being able to pull that out from all the different people there. Some people here longer, some people are shorter, some people born and brought up here, hey, do you remember when that happened? And, you kind of forget sometimes about where the problem was, so it worked well, because it was,
Although we didn't get anyone to tell us what happened in the hurricane of '38, but I think they did mention maybe the blizzard of
The barn in
'79.
our backyard fell over. That's when we stopped being a farming family. Glad no one else heard that.
Great job, team. Any other questions?
Thanks, Mike.
Fantastic.
Thank you very
Great
much.
job.
Great job.
And thank you.
Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Right. I particularly like the fact that we're in a high elevation because I'm all set with being trapped in a flood. Another flood.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, been there, right?
Yeah. At least there wouldn't be alligators
guys.
this time.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, right on time. Okay, 3A, Town Clerk for the presidential/state election warrant. So this is just a procedural thing.
Procedural item to have to direct a warrant to the constable for the forthcoming election on November 8th. November 35th? No, 8th.
Yeah, you are a funny guy, all right? Let's move on.
He waited all day to say that.
Yeah, of course he did. You ready?
It's got a post-it
All right.
on the screen.
I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute a warrant for the presidential/state general election to be held on Tuesday, November 8th, 2016, at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Charles Forbes K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street, and to direct the constable to post said warrant forthwith.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good.
And we will have the warrant for you to sign tonight, so.
Okay. Tonight, or we have to?
Yep.
Yep, okay, great. 3B, water main replacement design for Nagog Hill Road reconstruction.
This is a proposed change order to the contract that you've already let for design of the Nagog Hill Road reconstruction project. As you recall, from the New Estate Road project, there was a problem with the asbestos cement water pipe, which cracked once we opened the road and started doing the work. Looking and seeing that the same type of water line is on Nagog Hill Road for a length of almost 1,300 feet, that we're looking to proactively, rather than reactively, deal with the need to replace that water main. So at least for now, we're looking at a design cost of $14,000 and change. The construction cost is estimated at $330,000 for that, I'm sorry, for that 1,800 feet, rather, that would be on Nagog Hill Road. 1,300 feet was the length on New Estate Road, and the cost came in at around $200,000 for that. What we have not done yet, and which invited discussion between this board and the Board of Water Commissioners at some point, is for the long term, how do we finance water main replacements? It's certainly the case that we know that the Water Enterprise Fund cannot handle, that they don't have the financial resources to handle capital projects like this. We do have the money in the general fund, the way that we use the monies for the road project, but we may want to have a discussion at some point about how we fund them, as well as, I think, closer coordination between the town and the water department when we select roads to be done, that we want to make sure that we're choosing roads that are not only based on the road condition, but also are mindful, at least, of what the need is to replace the water main, so.
So we've had discussion of Light and Water about this too, this exact topic. And as Keith said, just can't support this type of construction at this point. Hopefully with some influx in the vacant buildings in town, specifically down by the depot, hopefully that revenue will start to build and direct some for infrastructure. Because the infrastructure in town is old, and it has to be replaced, and as Keith said, let's not be reactive but proactive. And we do need to sit down with the Light and Water Commission just to discuss it, look at our road plan, see what roads are, they know what the infrastructure is on the road, and have discussions about it.
So in terms of that particular action, should we look to shoot to do that? I mean, do we have to do it in any short order, or we
After
can
town
do after
meeting,
town meeting?
after town
Okay,
meeting, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So put that on.
I think it
there.
would probably be something if we could get the, for example, during the day-long budget review, which we will do in
Yeah.
January, and if the water department is represented there, that would be an opportunity for a discussion of this sort of high-level
Okay,
conversation we want to have.
I mean, either way, folks in town have to pay for it,
yeah.
Right.
So it's
Not
just
way too
different,
cost into it.
what type of pocket, where the funds are gonna come from, so.
Yeah.
It's really a matter of, if we do it now, then we're kind of getting a head start on a failure.
Exactly.
Down the road, we're gonna have to do, it'll probably cost us more. We're looking at just 14,000 right now for the design work, and then to do the construction is 10% of the total project.
Right.
We're already planning on digging
And we
it up
don't, right, and we
anyway.
did, and as we discussed on the New Estate Road, the last thing we want to do is to reconstruct a road, button it up, and then have the water main
And open it
fail,
up.
Totally.
and dig up the road, so.
I mean, Goldsmith was the same way, so.
That's right, yeah, we said, that's
We
right.
addressed-
That's
we
right.
addressed it
Suddenly,
in
when we got
Goldsmith, so-
the 3.5 million for Goldsmith, road reconstruction, we had to suddenly come up with $1 million to replace that water main, which was not in the plan, so.
Okay. Any,
The only thing I'll say is, as I've mentioned in the past, anytime we open a road up, I think it's a good idea to put just some sort of conduit in the ground, and actually it came up tonight that we're looking at, it'd be a good idea for us to put fiber in place
Cedar Hill.
from Dispatch to Cedar Hill, so any roads that are at least between that path, we should be putting some sort of conduit in the ground, so that we do have that opportunity to chase that through, and not have to open up the ground. How do you look at that, Jim? I mean, is it during your design process? For
Put like fiber in? or-
no, just a utility conduit of some sort with
Just a redundant
two
pipe.
manholes at the end of the roads?
We generally, unless it was there, it doesn't go back in unless there's a need that is, brought to our attention. I mean, right now, they're replacing the gas main on Nagog in anticipation of us doing this, because it's the cheapest time for them to do it. And then it will be out of our way for the drainage, but unless we know that something needs to go in, because you have no idea what size conduits to put in unless you know what you're putting in it.
Yeah, and the discussion we never have is to sort of, I mean, it's always, the roads that get chosen for the roadway project are always based on road condition. And if there was another list that was, well, where's the oldest water mains
Yeah.
in town? And that we could be taking that into consideration.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I totally agree.
So,
Any other thoughts, questions?
if only we
board?
knew someone on the water.
We're working on it.
Okay, we good to go here, guys? I think this makes a lot of good sense, yeah?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the contract amendment with Green International Affiliates, Inc. of Westford for additional engineering services for the water main replacement design, Nagog Hill Road, in the amount of $14,330.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next up, plowing, sanding private ways. So do we, and I apologize,
This is the annual vote of the board to look at, you got two of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just didn't know if someone was missing
Get
one.
two votes.
Pick one, yeah.
What roads are on, let's do an audit here.
This is, there's no change
Ted
from
Doucette in the room?
the roads that are included under the policy, that there's no additional roads,
Okay.
none of the roads have dropped off. This year's list indicates, based on the Highway Department's review, which roads need to be improved in order for the in order for the highway department to be able to plow and sand them, and so you've got divided into those that are okay as is and those that are approved, subject to the conditions that Mr. Clyde has outlined.
And Jim, Mr. Clyde, how has that shaked out? I know I remember seeing this sort of a thing, no issues and conditions, last year. Did the folks kind of rally around the conditions, take care of it so you can, yeah, that's great.
There is a little, I guess, hiccup because we're so late in the season. Some of these need like paving, patching some potholes, but the problem is so small that we're never gonna get a contractor to come and do it because the economy's so good and it's just too small of a job. So they're kind of in a predicament that there's a potential they can't get it done. I mean, not for lack of trying.
Yeah.
So we do have a bylaw that says if it's under $25, the town can do it. If it's over $25, they have to submit a petition signed by all the abutters, submit it to the selectmen to get it approved, and then they have to pay for the, for the estimate before we can do anything.
And that's the majority of them have problems.
Well, the worst one is the Green Needles,
Green Needles.
the back half has got the biggest and the most dangerous potholes that there's no way we can allow that to go through without getting it fixed. But-
And that's gonna be more than $25, I'm
Yeah, so I
assuming.
mean, we're looking at about 2 ton of material, and it's like, we pay $68 a ton, so it's what, $132, something like that. But it's over the 25.
So what bylaws are you talking about, Keith? Private ways?
93s,
The temporary repairs to
Yeah.
private ways.
We don't have a copy of that here, do we?
No, no.
All right, so, I mean, we always had in our goals to review bylaws.
Yeah.
I think this is one we should review. Is there any administrative action that we can take to allow folks to say, hey, we'll pay the town, here's the money, please fix it, to include the labor and the material? Or do we have to go through?
You need it done in order to, it's better on your equipment
Yeah.
and your drivers.
Yeah, I can understand
it'll cost us more to not fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So is there a
How do we get this- how do we
mechanism
get it
in
done?
place? A mechanism in place, what do we need to do? Is there a special town meeting we can discuss this, coming in November at our next, our next town meeting, or is it too late? Is there an administrative process?
For $25.
What's that?
We could fix it 5 times, for $25 each.
Well,
I love it.
perhaps
Being
what
creative.
Perhaps what you'd want to do is authorize the administration to waive the dollar limit, assuming that we can do that.
No, because then we're setting a precedent.
Yeah, so, other than that, it would take an
Well, we should
amendment.
be reviewing the bylaws.
Right,
It's kind of
exactly.
consistent with
Yeah,
what
we'll
we
add it to
adopted in
we'll add it
August.
to the list of bylaws we look at for a future year.
Well, what's that number? Is the number now $200?
No, let's make the bylaw, if it's too small and we want the private folks, the folks on the private ways want to pay for it, Jim says, here's my labor, here's my material, here's a bill, pay it.
Well, I'm dealing with a developer right now that's trying to get a road paved 2,000 feet, and he's struggling to get people to call him back. Because it's so busy.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, it's almost impossible for them to get that done, because it's just too small of a job.
So the big one, the Green Needles, it seems to be the worst one.
Yes.
When's our next meeting? Have them, if they want to get if they want us to do it, get their petition, put them on notice, come before us, have the petition signed, and we do the approval on it. We're meeting on the 26th.
So that's the only mechanism we have now, right? According to the bylaws,
Yes.
it's over 25, they come before us, and we can grant that.
Yep.
It's old.
$25, we're way up in the 50s.
Yeah, well, the tougher part sometimes is getting the unanimous consent. That's been an issue in the past. All it takes is one person to say, not me. Yeah.
Paying my assessment, yeah.
And do they know how to organize them amongst each other, or we know who the abutters are and we send them all?
No,
or
this
they
is
figure
their
it out?
responsibility.
Yeah.
We're
Figure it out.
giving them a service they need to pay for, and all we're saying is, instead
Yeah,
of,
yourself.
We'll work with you.
here's a
Yeah.
bill, give us a check before we do the job, and then Jim goes in and does the job. That way there is no issue, like Paul said, that one resident saying, nah, I don't wanna pay.
What was
You
it,
know.
Lake Shore Drive, we had that at one point, that's it,
Yeah.
no thanks, like it's the
So-
way it is.
remember
I mean,
that.
the bylaw is so tight right now, so long as we get the money,
Yeah.
and he's okay with it, these small projects, it's all good. You know, when we help, I mean, they're private ways, let's not forget that.
Yep. Okay,
But if we can help them out, let's help them out.
Right.
yeah. So
If
that,
if it doesn't get done in time, Jim, can you just tell them that we can't plow and they'll have to hire?
Can you tell them that? Yeah, that's.
Well, that's what your vote is.
No, no, I'm not, I didn't mean you, I didn't,
Yeah, no, that's what's supposed to happen, so. Partly because this happened this year, the thought process now is, we send the letters to them in August to say, send your petitions in, we need them by X date.
okay,
So we need to look at the roads then and say, here's the list of items that we're gonna tell you to do. We hope to have it done when you send our petition in, because it's so late in the season, our policy for this is just a little bit off and doesn't work correctly. For this reason, because it's so late in the season.
but those letters already went out. And
They went out in August to
there were
say,
notes.
okay, good.
here, fill your petitions, and we sometimes ask the same thing year after year. I mean, Green Needles, we've been asking, they fill the potholes, you know, every year, so you know we're gonna be asking.
Right. So, okay, to that point, I was just gonna say, do we need to send a reminder, but to your point, they get it every year, it's not a
Well,
process that's new.
so-
to-
But, I mean, the fact is, and I found this, it's in the bylaws, says minor repairs, $25 is in the bylaws, so we would need to amend the bylaws at town meeting in order to change the number 25.
Which we
And
can't
that
do
takes,
until next,
that takes an act of town meeting, so.
okay,
So let's shoot for that for the spring, though.
yeah.
There's no reason why we can't shoot for that.
We tag that?
Sure.
Let's
Absolutely.
Let's get that on the front burner so we can get this cleaned up.
For now, we'll have to just let it ride the way it rides.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if, whatever you usually approve the list tonight, we send the letters out, try to get them typed up and out in the mail tomorrow.
Okay, so you do something right away, okay.
And we'll definitely include you in the discussion so we can get these timeframes fixed, too.
But I think, so if we make this motion tonight, there's gonna be a notice going out to them tomorrow, the next day, by the end of the week. Can we just have some language in that saying that we will notify them that we cannot plow their,
Well, the conditions are here.
yeah.
Yeah, if you,
Doesn't get done unless.
yeah, if you,
Make it sound wicked mean, though.
if you adopt it,
Yeah,
yeah, if
exactly.
you adopt this motion as proposed, then those roads that do not comply will not be
Right.
plowed by the town.
Right, that's, all we're saying is,
Need it.
let's give a mechanism to the folks on those roads.
Absolutely.
To have them, you know, get a bill, pay the bill, and Jim does a little stuff that he wants to save his equipment,
Yeah, 'cause you
save,
can pick up a couple tons,
save
couple
his,
ton of material.
his workers and contractors and all their equipment, too.
Do you have a regular patch crew that goes around on a regular schedule? Not regular, but
Yeah.
a run that you do?
We have a hot box that we
Yeah.
bought last year, and that's the prime candidate for that.
Okay, very good.
Ready?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to its August 28, 2000 policy on plowing, sanding private ways to approve the list of roads recommended by the Highway Department, report dated October 13, 2016, as follows. Approved without further conditions. Barron Way, Bar Place, Countryside Road, Deer Run Road, Great Road, number 504 through 512, plowing only. Green Needles Road, Neshoba Woodland section, Robin Wood Road, Rock Place, Silver Birch Lane, Whispering Pine Drive, and, what is that, Winged Cove Road. Approved subject to conditions set forth by the Highway Department. And those conditions are Cricket Lane, minor potholes between poles 1 and 2, 8 and 10, hill at end. Green Needles Road, back half, major potholes, Wing Cove to end. Hidden Wood Path, minor tree trimming, Great Road to house number 1. Oak Ridge Road, minor potholes, hill at the entrance between house number 3 and 5 and 7. Omega Way, minor potholes across the Littleton lumber fenced storage area. That kills me, we're plowing a business. Star Hill, minor potholes area, parallel, with the gardens, community gardens, major catch basin needs repair at corner. Wickham Ave, number 139 and 149, minor potholes, edges at entrance, right fork, what does that say? Delaminating pavement area. Forgot my glasses.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you want me to read the next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
We got some money from DCU. So accept gifts. DCU gifts for fire and police. Some good news here.
And we've been getting gifts on at least an annual basis from DCU, but, and you have voted in the past to set up gift funds to receive such donations, but where it's such a sizable amount that it's worth bringing to your attention here in a meeting to formally accept it, and a great opportunity to thank the DCU for its contribution.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of DCU, and when I see their letter to the town, saying that they're committed to making a difference in the community and they're a socially responsible organization, and thanking the chiefs for all they do, that's fantastic. So, and I see both chiefs have had some ideas on what they might do with those funds. I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, on the fire side, last year we used it to assist us in the safe and senior safe programs for the schools and the seniors in town. This year we're looking to try to expand that into like some Knox box things, which it's like a secured key thing for our seniors in town when there's medical emergencies and things of that nature. Also to assist us a little bit more in the schools. We do get some state funding from that in the SAFE program, and this is always nice to help boost it for that little bit of extra when we do things like in the high school, like the CPR program, which the entire high school, now everybody graduates being certified in CPR.
Chief?
Like to utilize ours again for the seniors. We do the veterans lunches and breakfasts, senior luncheons, trying to expand some things, especially around Christmas time. I've got a meeting I'm gonna set up with the Park and Rec, because I'd like to also talk to them about, people that need meals around Christmas, and also making sure that none of the children in our community, go without around that time of year. Last year, Park and Rec struggled a little bit near the end, so I'd like to kind of team up with them this year and try and get something moving forward on that. And also, we're gonna start a couple of different things, Coffee with a Cop, which we'll do at some of the different shops, and then my plan is actually to, when the weather turns again, is to start setting up Coffee with a Cop right on the common. We'll do that in the morning on, certain days of the week, and just, we'll have different officers there, and we'll advertise it, and come down and have a cup of coffee, share your, whatever's going on. It's worked well in the past. I do it constantly with the seniors and the veterans, so I think it's just something we're trying to expand on, and, so.
That's fantastic. So you're taking.
It's great having a group like that. It helps you be able to do some of the they're not huge things, but they're great things to get, there are certainly some people in need, and also, just getting the departments out there with the, you don't see us always in a bad situation, which is 10 times when you see us. We're not normally a wanted guest at your house.
Absolutely. You're taking a very generous gift and giving it directly back to the community, just right back again. So that's fantastic. Any questions, comments, board? It's a slam dunk.
Thank you, DCU.
Thank you, DCU.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 53A, to receive unsolicited gifts from the Digital Federal Credit Union, DCU, as follows. 1, $3,500 to be deposited into the special gift fund account to be used without further appropriation by the fire chief towards costs associated with community education by the fire department. And 2, $3,500 to be deposited into a special gift to be used without further appropriation by the police chief towards costs associated with senior citizen dinners, veterans breakfasts, community education, and departmental training.
And the term "without further appropriation" is legalese for no town meeting vote required.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Keith, could we get a little note out to DCU from the board thanking them for that?
Sure. we'll
She
put
said
our
Keith,
best
which
man
is,
on it.
she's,
Sorry, yes.
Keith, do we get a nod out to you?
543.
Okay, that'd be fantastic.
Nice rebound.
All right, 4A, public input. Is there any public input?
Don't look at me. Stop talking.
Oh.
Throw me out.
We're always looking at you, Gina. All right, sorry, Chief.
Just real quick, I got a quick look at the process, I realize, and I'll put it in writing, but looking at the alumni field rebuild and the new parking lot and things like that, and I realize it's early in, but I just would encourage to leave the new parking in in the new design if at all possible. It's a public safety choke point there. We're constantly worried about people getting hit in that area. As everyone knows, when the game's let out, that backing into traffic, people crossing, everything in there, and I just, certainly having seen the initial, it just from a public safety standpoint, I encouraged it somewhat to be done when the middle school rebuild was being done and Russell Street rebuild being done, and I think it's something that, if at all possible, should stay in that, in the project if possible. And I realize it's a large ticket part of it, but if we can keep it in, I think it's important.
Thank you.
Any other public input? Okay, all right, members' input, I'm going to start right here. with
Oh, look at
Chris
that.
here.
Jeez. I just have a couple things from, we subscribe to The Beacon, which is the publication by Mass Municipal Association. There are a few things that I thought were of note that we could maybe take advantage of that were listed in The Beacon in this issue. One of them is there's 217 communities receiving recycling grants. So I don't know if there's any opportunity for us to
We got
take a
one.
deeper dive.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
There's a little grant.
We'll take every grant we can
The
get.
Sustainability Committee is pretty well on that, too.
Yep.
Pretty good on that.
I'd rather be redundant.
Sure?
Yep. Mass DOT is accepting applications for municipal small bridge program, and I was thinking about this when Martin was in the room, talking, Mr. Pillsbury was in the room, talking about the hazard mitigation. And there are potentially some bridges that we would qualify for, some grants. There's $500,000 a year for any bridges. There's 1,300 bridges that are identified as being in need of repair. And there's any bridge that's between 10 and 20 feet in size qualifies, so I think we've got a few of those in town. And lastly, demolition of blighted projects grants, $500,000 available for demolition of blighted projects, blighted properties, I'm sorry. And I know there are some folks who have raised concerns about some of the properties in town that have been abandoned or condemned or slated for removal. So I think we have an opportunity to take a look at that. So just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention and see if we could act on it. Mr. Clyde?
Yes.
The bridge program, we've looked at that, and we only have one span that's technically a bridge, which is Mill Road at Warren Street, and it's 26 feet, and it does not qualify. Everything else we have is culverts. So Green, our engineering company, has looked at that as well, to see what qualifies.
So a lot of them are on state roads, so they wouldn't qualify, but
Correct.
I was hoping that we might have some. Thanks, appreciate that input.
So that's 2 out of 3, so we have blighted properties left. I don't know where that one
You
goes.
looking for recommendations?
Chief Wazinski took care of one of mine in my neighborhood.
I mean,
I'll tell you
yeah, I
when
mean,
he's not home.
if guys, if people want to send me recommendations, I'll take recommendations and I'll bring them forward, and if we can look at that and see if we qualify for some of those funds.
I assume this means the property owner has to be in agreement with the,
You would think, yeah, that might have something to do with it. We got eminent domain though, right?
Oh, boy. That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, very good.
The Republican
Selectman.
administrations usually ask for the property owner's permission.
right? Trump's not a big fan of that, though. He's looking for me?
Yes.
Oh, well, just wanted to say kudos to the master plan committee and those citizens who showed up. The ghetto-lifers like myself who had nothing better to do on Friday night and Saturday morning at the most recent charrette for our master plan process. Again, great success. And there'll be one more townwide session later on in the fall to kind of review all of the input that we've been dutifully gathering. So our chairman, Paul Laveller, our consultants, RKG, et cetera, and everybody else done a great job. And I think that they've been forums that people feel they have had meaningful input at.
Excellent. Very good. Selectman Carr?
I'm good.
Selectman Knox?
I want to take this opportunity to congratulate our fellow selectman, Mr. Carr, on his marriage recently. Shall we? Thank you.
Being an honest man again.
He kept it quiet. Paul and I would talk about now he did it, but he did it. Do we now talk about, like, it also says goal updates?
Yes, I'm just going to give a quick update, super
okay.
quick. Number one,
Who are you again?
yeah, exactly, that's, let me start there. So,
Welcome back.
thank you. I have been on a business trip that seemingly never ended, but over 3 weeks. I thank the vice chair, the board, Keith, and everyone for covering for me while I'm out. I know I have emails and meetings outstanding. Be patient with me as I dig myself out of a hole here. But I am back for the time being. One of our LCTV cameramen, it's Chris Banks' birthday today, so he is not up there, though. He took the day off, but we wish him happy birthday. And great to hear about the charrette. That is one thing I missed, unfortunately, so I was looking to hear how that went down. Okay, yes, goal updates. Selectman Knox, did you have something you wanted to?
Just two quick things. I went to the COA meeting today. It's the second time I've gone. It's good to know how busy they actually are and all the things they're doing. They formed an awareness subcommittee to let people, not only seniors, but other people know exactly what they do. And I told them I thought this was really needed because they are doing so much for the town, not only seniors, but people who are in need, to get that out there. A couple other things that were talked about, they talked about housing. I think they met with the Housing Authority, Gino, and they announced that the planning board is having on November 21st an affordable housing meeting, which is extremely important. So that's coming up. Last thing, they talked quite a bit about transportation. Gave credit to Keith for the work that was done because it's helping them out. We actually run 2 buses now, and it was pointed out that some towns run one and don't run it all the time because they can't find the funding for it. So we're a little bit ahead on that. So I just wanted to point that out. Second thing is the Personnel Committee. That meeting's coming up on Thursday, light agenda, so.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Any updates from you, any goals?
We're gonna be talking about the sewer article and our review of articles, so I'll just, save on that. We'll get a little bit more background on the financing.
Okay, okay, great.
Just I'm going to jump on the back of Joe's talking about the COA. I was talking to Barbara McRae and trying to find out if there was opportunities for us to, I'd mentioned maybe doing a pizza on a Friday night before a football game or something like that. They are doing a newcomer's coffee at Pine Tree Park on November 7th from 2:30 to 4 p.m. So she's invited each of us, so I'm extending that invitation to y'all. So I'm gonna do my best to make it to that.
2:30 to
2:30 to 4 on November 7th at Pine Tree Park. It's called a newcomer's coffee.
Thank you. All right, very good. All right, on to special town meetings. First item, adopt article recommendations 5A, or 5.
And the board has not adopted recommendations on any of the articles yet, although you've indicated your support on a number of them. But this would be the opportunity to formally vote to recommend the articles. When this came up at your last meeting, you wanted to see input from the Finance Committee, and FinCom has taken a number of votes thus far on articles. And we can go through those. I also would call your attention that Bonnie has prepared a funding, Bonnie and Steve actually have come up with a funding plan for some of our larger projects, which is worth your consideration. And specifically, it proposes that stabilization fund monies be used to reduce the fire station bonding, which would actually realize significant savings, maybe $1 million over time.
Excess of $1 million.
whereas if you apply it to the alumni field, which we're proposing to do in short-term or bond anticipation notes, we don't actually pay that much in interest costs, so there's not as much opportunity for savings. And on both of those large projects, I'd say we're not looking to get a vote tonight on either one, because we're looking to finalize those numbers at what I hope is a special meeting that you'll hold a week from Wednesday, if that works, so October 26th, so that we're opening bids, as we've discussed before, we're opening bids for the fire station on the 25th of October. That's when the GC bids are open. We're doing subcontractor bids tomorrow, in fact, but the week from tomorrow is the GC bids. And when you adopt your recommendation on the fire station, it would, you can, if you meet after that date, then you can take those bid results into consideration. And I know we're also looking for the alumni field to have, the final estimates before town meeting for that. So if you, and I don't know, maybe it'd be helpful just to have Bonnie go over the funding. She had briefed the finance committee last week, just so that they were aware of it, but it looked like our finance team was putting their thinking cap on about how to save money, so.
All right.
Basically, what we did is we wanted to take a look at all of the tools that we had available for us in financing a number of these issues and figure out what's the best way to apply the resources that we have to get the biggest bang for our buck. And I know the discussion before had been around using the full $2.9 million towards alumni field directly. And
Capital stabilization.
correct. And just financing the full fire station debt for the 20-year issue. But in looking at more closely at that, the longest that you could technically finance alumni field, if that were the desire, would be 15 years. That's probably not a practical financing schedule because the lifespan is probably 12, say. And if there's a bond out against it, you cannot do any other renovations to that facility until the first bond is paid off. So what we looked at doing is saying, if there's a 20-year note out for the fire station, which is what we're planning to do, that's 20 years worth of interest that you're accumulating and you're paying off. So if we apply the $2.9 million towards the $8.9 million that we're thinking the fire station debt would come in at, rather than alumni field, we would look at saving about $1.1 million over the 20-year life of the debt. What we do for alumni in the short term is issue bands or bond anticipation notes or temporary borrowings in the amount of $8 million $4 million is the estimated.
That's what, $8 million's for
No,
that.
sorry about that. For 8 years.
Combination alumni field library.
Wow. And I know that these are assumptions. I know 4 million may not be the number. I know that number is in flux right now. We don't have final costs. But we're using 4 million for the projections here. So if we did that for 8 years, we would still have the flexibility to push it out a year or two if we needed to. But 8 years is a good way to start. We need to make pay downs every year of about $500,000 plus the interest. And then that would reduce the debt payment that we're making on the fire station from the $9 million figure to a more manageable $6 million figure. So in doing that, I showed you this sheet here on the second page of the note to show what is our borrowing capacity that is not currently utilized or is only utilized in capital spending as we're going forward. And then what are the debt issues going to look like in the next few years if we follow that timeline. So in fiscal 19, you can see that the borrowing capacity is $427. Fire station debt would just be coming on a little bit because we just have interest costs only. We wouldn't have placed the debt yet. Alumni would be making that $500,000 payment, so it would be $635,000. So there's a delta of $207,000. Those deltas are extenuated out through fiscal 2026, which is in the year that alumni would be fully paid under this assumption. So there are deficits shown. They vary. They peak at fiscal 2021 at 544, and then they disappear entirely in fiscal 26. So what we would propose doing with those deltas is figuring out either, you'd have to fund it either through the spending that we're programming for capital now, which in those years is about an average of $2 million a year. If that were not desired, we could look to see if there were any accumulated balance in the undesignated fund balance that were above our reserve requirements and appropriate it to reduce the debt on alumni. The other thing that we could look at annually is if there are any funds available from snow and ice money, any overlay surplus that might be released from the assessors, that could be used to offset this debt. Now, they're not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that every year we're going to have snow and ice or overlay or anything like that, but we are conservative, and we've been fortunate that there's been something, maybe, you know, not snow and ice and overlay, but maybe one or the other. It's not my favorite plan, but it is a plan, I think, that would accommodate both of these projects within the levy limit without jeopardizing, you know, too much the financing of the capital plan and saving over $1 million in interest costs over life. So if both projects are desired to be done inside the levy limit, this is the finance department's preferred method to deal with that.
Any comments, questions?
The bands, right now, if we were to do
At the end,
an anticipation, you know,
it's under 1%.
right, it's like 0.75%. I just wanted to get that out there. That's why there's no savings on the short term.
Right.
in doing the bands, so that's why you guys kind of flipped it the other way around.
Right. You really recognize the savings on a 20-year note.
Right.
It's
I
just,
mean, a conscious decision would have to be made. We have a stabilization fund set up for the debt. In, you know, we have 17 right now and 18 to put some money aside in that debt stabilization fund to accommodate some of these numbers here. And we need to make a conscious decision. You know, we're $2 million, and we have been $2 million a year on capital equipment. Without going up on taxes, you know, we divert some of that money to pay down this debt. Without telling, I mean, still $1.5 million on the capital equipment, it's still a lot of money.
well, it's my hope that there'd be other resources too.
Sure, I mean, that's, worst case scenario is we take capital
Yes,
fund.
that would be the worst case.
You know, if, you know, we still have fiscal year 18 coming up and fiscal year 17, snow and ice, we make a conscious decision, knowing now that these numbers, you know, they're higher than expected, you know, based on a $4 million, I don't know what the number will be, but 4 million, if it's 4 million, it's higher than I'd expect. So these numbers may fluctuate down.
Right, correct. And the fire station, when we
And
get
the
there.
fire station, right. So,
But as a general note, this is great work, and that's the sort of forward thinking that I think we appreciate very much.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so in terms of what we can accomplish tonight, I think there are some articles that are all set and ready to go. There are others that are still hanging out there. But to just take them in order, Article 1 is bills of
Easy.
prior years, $1,400. You could vote to support that.
Yep.
Article 2 is the amending the classification.
Want us to be voting as we go along?
Well,
We can lump them
or,
probably,
yeah,
right?
maybe one, I think one motion at the end, you could
Okay,
probably
fine.
just list the articles that you're supporting.
Thanks,
So
Bob.
let's not
So
disagree.
let's do Article.
1 and 2.
So Article 1 and 2. Article 2 is the amendments to the pay and class plan to implement state minimum wage of $11 per hour.
Yep.
The funding for that, Article 2, is contained in the motion in Article 3, which also includes the funds that you've already voted to support for the finance administration reorg plan, plus the $52,000 that is the net increase that goes to the school department. FinCom did vote to support this at their meeting.
So
last
we've already
week.
done that. Three's
So, well,
already
you should,
done.
you should take a vote
Okay.
to officially support that motion.
Okay.
I think, because I don't think we'd included the Park and Rec number when we discussed it before.
Okay.
Article 4 stabilization fund, we're not there yet, because I think the number that we plug into this article needs to be mindful of where the rest of the money is going. So we should come back to that at our special meeting next week. The capital, Article 5, the 3 capital projects, we're getting closer to filling in the blanks of what the costs, projected costs are. The Park and Rec Department has given us a number, $48,000 for the comprehensive needs assessment for recreation fields. The PMBC is meeting on Wednesday to finalize a number for the town government building space needs, it may only be in the order of $10,000 or $20,000, I think, from what I've heard. And then we had a figure that was shared at the FinCom meeting last week of $252,000 for the sewer, for Littleton Common Sewer. I don't know if that's changed.
Not likely to change, but more background to it. That's simply a 6% design cost based on what is the $4.2 million construction cost, which was the result of the $100,000 study that the Bar Foundation funded that CRWA did in 2010, 2011. We're actually meeting tomorrow morning. I'm meeting with Megan Ford, Bob Zimmerman, to get some updating on that. Bob's thinking is that that the amount of $600,000 should cover the first 2 phases, which would be a complete build-out analysis and the first 30% in design. He also thought, for a variety of reasons, because of the energy savings implicit in a safe, smart sewer, that we would be eligible for up to about $150,000 in Department of Energy Resources grants. So, a lot of complicated moving pieces there, which probably won't change that dollar figure, but will change the presentation we make. And there's the full expectation that this will be the first of at least a couple votes, the springtime as well, and, but this number should cover the build-out analysis piece in any event.
I think for the future, and from my experience with sewer projects, typically that a community would go after state revolving fund monies for the capital project, but you're also allowed to have debt on the design phase be folded into that.
Right.
Into that borrowing. Now at that level, it becomes borrowing. This motion is proposed as we're transferring funds from the overlay surplus, so that's a simple majority vote.
And that's why it would be designated toward the build-out analysis, not the other pieces.
Okay, so at the future, the typical way of funding a sewer project would be a borrowing article, and I think if it goes forward, the project you would see, you'd be getting into the borrowing category. But we probably should have mentioned, just reminded, that we have a total of $800,000 in cash to spend with simple majority votes, and that's the combination of the remaining money that we didn't need for the snow and ice deficit, which was $440,000, and then the $412 from overlay surplus. So the total of $852 can be spent on the spending plan and only require simple majority votes. So if, even at these numbers, we could probably still put, I think, half of that. I mean, even with 252 and with 48 and whatever the other number is, we'll still have about 400,000, I think, that we could put into the debt exclusion stabilization fund. So it looks like we'd be in good shape on this.
Now, do we recommend this with a blank, or would we?
Not yet, no. I think what we need to do is, at the board's next meeting, right prior to the deadline, we'll have to make a decision about what to fill in with the blanks.
Okey dokey.
But I think we're getting closer to that.
That's very good.
But no vote tonight on Article 5.
Excellent.
So consequently, there wouldn't be a vote tomorrow night from the Finance Committee either, likely.
No, in fact, I think that they were aware from the discussion last week that the Selectmen would be meeting midweek next week, and I don't know if they're gonna, I think it would be helpful for them to schedule a meeting at a similar time to
I wonder
finalize
if we
the
should
numbers.
meet with them then rather than tomorrow, because I wonder how much we're gonna get accomplished tomorrow. I mean, this is the only topic on the agenda, right?
No,
school.
Overview of the state.
Okay, all the finances, general
This,
finances.
this is the fourth of 4 topics on tomorrow night's agenda.
Okay.
But it's a good idea, but nice try, though.
Worth a
I wish,
shot.
yeah, right, right.
Okay, so we skip 5, then 6.
Yeah, so 5 is the capital, no vote. The fire station, no vote tonight, because we'll have the number at our next meeting. Alumni Field, we'll,
No vote, waiting for a number.
we're waiting for the number, so we'll take that up next week.
8 is a good one.
8,
Yeah.
you can vote to do, that's rescind unused borrowing authority. The FinCom voted to support that. You could do 9, which is the supplemental $19,000 for the Army Corps project for the
No pond.
Mill Pond. You could do 10, which is the Water Department's proposed acquisition for $200,000.
Got a number for 11, right?
We do have a number for 11, it's 205,000. What we don't have yet is a funding source, because what we want is a vote of the Community Preservation Committee to use CPA funds for that, so,
Hold off on it. Hold off.
so let's,
We're
yeah.
on their agenda, though.
We're on their agenda for Wednesday night,
This
for
Wednesday.
this one at least, for Article 11, so that if we take it up a week from now, I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Article 12, we'll be discussing in executive session, a brief update on where those negotiations are. I think it would be fair to say that we're still apart and may not have a resolution by town meeting.
Okay.
Article 13 is the article that the board inserted to restrict the development of the 4 lots on Narcissus Road. And at least during the discussion at the Finance Committee, they were confused that the article, as town council has drafted it, simply empowers the selectmen with the ability to impose your conditions on the sale. And it didn't specifically say, as the explanation does, that the intent is to have it be conveyed as no build. So at least the Finance Committee, I think, was confused, but if the intent was no build, should the motion say no build, and perhaps so. We could certainly have
That
town
would be a
council look at
yes.
that. Yeah. So we can have town council
So hold off on that.
redraft that memo, redraft that motion, rather. Article 14, you have voted your support in inserting the article. Finance Committee voted to support it, and you could vote to recommend Article 14, for the reorg plan.
Keith, can you scroll through to the, just so that.
Oh,
that's-
yeah, sure, okay, sorry, here we are. Then, for Article 15 is the other post-employment benefit trust fund, which you could vote to support. And then the remaining 2 articles are voter petitions, which you may or may not wish to take positions on.
Okay, so this is what I have. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15. Anyone got one I missed?
No, good.
That was it.
Good. Let's do it.
Go, Jim.
Go ahead. It's a lot of reading.
I'm good. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to support the following articles in the November 16, 2016 special town meeting and direct the preparation of motions to be moved and seconded by the Board of Selectmen. Article 1, bills of prior years. Article 2, amend classification and compensation plan, state minimum wage. Article 3, fiscal year 2017 budget amendments. Article 8, rescind unused borrowing authority. Article 9, Mill Pond Restoration Feasibility Study supplemental funding. Article 10, acquire 34 Cedar Road, map U17-83-0 for Littleton Water Department. Article 14, town bylaw amendments, town administrator, Department of Finance and Budget. Article 15, establish other post-employment benefits liability trust fund.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we need to schedule the special meeting to finalize the recommendations. So we're all settling on 26. We got a prop group. Is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Cool. That way it doesn't need to be on my birthday the next
Move the Board of
day.
Selectmen vote to schedule a special meeting for Wednesday, October 26, 2016, at 6:30 PM to finalize recommendations of the town meeting articles.
Second?
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excellent. All right. Let's see, 8:15, we got a
Don't
public
meet next
hearing.
Monday, right?
We do not meet next Monday. no.
But I'm free if you want to get together.
So we have tomorrow night, then the next one's next Wednesday. Okay. All right. Nothing else that I missed between now and then. That's enough meetings into it. Okay, good. All right, so we've got plenty of time to be on schedule for our 8:15 public hearing, and we have 2 topics. related to Economic Development Incentive Program, and that's a TIF, or tax increment financing, for a very important property in our town. So Keith, maybe you can,
Yes, that we can introduce. We have Dan Gray and Don Smallwood that are here from, you've come all the way from Air.
long journey.
And welcome.
Get the blue light?
We have received a letter of intent under the Economic Development Incentive Program, signed by Dan on behalf of CPF Inc., expressing their desire to discuss the EDIP program, which for us is the tax increment financing program. They've submitted a preliminary application to the state to be able to, with an eye to being on the December quarterly meeting of the state's Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, which is the state agency that approves EDIP applications and TIF agreements. In order to get there, for the December meeting, it would also be necessary for there to be a town meeting vote. We've been working with, in fact, Melissa and Joe and I and Scott Edwards from Light and Water had met with Don and Dan back in September. They were introduced to us by the New Mill Capital, Greg Shane, whose firm had acquired the property some last winter. And we had a preliminary conversation about their plans, and as things gelled and we finally got a written letter, you were in your due diligence, and as we got a written letter for the EDIP program, we thought we might get it in time to put an article on the warrant that closed on September 30, but it took them a few more days beyond that. So we're in the unusual situation tonight that we still have the ability to bring it to the town meeting voters on November 16th. We just need to call a second special town meeting for that night with a one-article warrant, and then we can bring the matter to the voters in time. But there's an opportunity, and I'd certainly invite Dan and Don to come up and introduce yourselves and just welcome to Littleton.
Where would you like for us to be?
Oh, just right there is fine, thanks.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks
Good
for
evening.
coming down.
Thanks for having us, we appreciate it. We're actually originally from Littleton because both of us managed that location from 1988 till I left in 2012. So we've got a little bit of history at the 20 Harvard Road location. So,
Otherwise known as Very Fine or Sunny Delight.
yes, it's soon to be known.
It was still very fine when I was there. I left in 2000, and I now work for Epic and Air and next door CPF. Two sister Pepsi plants right side by side.
So we're a cooperative. We're an independent cooperative. We produce Pepsi and Pepsi partner products. And this plant is obviously very close to our plants, and strategically it makes sense for us to grow our business through this location, which we can essentially manage from Air. So it really has many synergies for us. Certainly a big win for the town, win for both of our companies.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's a very important building to us, and it gives me a sense of assurance that you guys have come from that building, and like you said, you're right down the street with the town that we cooperate with very well, Aaron and ourselves. Like Chuck said, there's a light that's getting put in there due to cooperation there between the two towns, so I'd like to see that continue for sure.
We'd be on a rather accelerated timetable here, and just I had met with Dan last week just to go over what the timetable is, that the preliminary application that they've submitted to the EDIP program was one level. The next thing is the supplemental application, which is due on November 9th, and that is submitted to the state, and it needs to include a TIF agreement. the negotiated TIF agreement, if there is to be one. So the selectmen have a regular meeting on November 7th, so I think as a practical matter, if the board proceeds tonight, that we need to be having you review a proposed TIF agreement on your meeting on November 7th, and then it's the November 16th town meeting that will then go to authorize that agreement. We've cleared the way through the Mass Office of Business Development. They understand that even though November 9th is the state's deadline, they understand we would have a town meeting on November 16th, a week later, and that they are fine by saying if everything's done except the town meeting vote, that they would allow the application to proceed. So those are the procedural hurdles we have. Earlier tonight, the Financial Policies Working Group met and came up with a recommendation per our financial management policy calls for a tax increment financing and pilot committee, but we have not populated it. We have not come up with who's on that committee. And the motion that you see on the screen tonight represents the recommendation from the Financial Policies Working Group, i.e. for 2 selectmen and 1 each from FinCom, EDC, Light and Water. That's Light and Water combined, not 1 light and 1 water. Board of Assessors and Planning Board, and then the staff for those boards, as well as myself and Bonnie and Steve would be staff advisors to that committee.
Thank you to the Financial Policy Working Group to meet quickly before this.
Well, we agreed on the structure of the committee,
Okay.
but I think it's terrific that Epic and CPF are looking to take a natural home in my mind at very fine. I worked in high school, so that's how I think of it.
Which is the cider plant then, wasn't it?
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed himself delivered the apples. But I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves on the TIF piece of it, because we have had them come in without benefit of a town policy dictating what our position is on it. Our Economic Development Committee has never advocated for it. They're not present as part of this discussion either, although fortunately they'd be representative of the future as we consider them. And when we addressed this with the Financial Policies Group last spring, the only step we took collectively, FinCom, Selectmen, and the advisory group, was to agree to set up this committee to review them. Because we knew we were operating without criteria, without a way of determining what's good, what's bad, what's in the town's interest, when to say yes, when to say no, how much. And instead it's just somebody who's new to town, either business outfit, either savvy enough to be aware of or is made aware of the opportunity to ask, and they ask. And now we're put in a position of having to justify this. And I don't know how we can justify it when it's pretty clear that the transaction would likely go forward regardless of whether or not there's a tax break involved. And I don't know, what's the argument to the town on this, and what process did we use to justify it? I think we should welcome these folks. We should strengthen the relationships that are already there with the light department, water department. I understand those are major factors for why they'd want to be here. But everything from our own Economic Development Committee, plus the EdSat report, which we got from the state, pointedly said tax TIF programs for a town like ours is, we don't need to do that in order to attract businesses. And internally, we haven't settled that argument of what's appropriate and what's not. So I think we're pushing this too fast, and I don't think this specific case it's appropriate to bring this before the town, especially in a hurried up session.
I'd have to agree with Paul as far as, we don't even have the TIF committee or the pilot committee together yet, and I hear it from folks in town about, why. The question is why.
Too. Yeah.
So, we want to do the right thing and welcome you to the town, absolutely. But I think that, you know, we're putting the cart before the horse. And, you know, the process should be that this board, the finance committee, give this committee a charge in regards to what we expect them to advise us on. And that hasn't even happened yet. So those are some of my concerns.
Okay, now let me ask the question. So tonight's vote was to receive a letter of intent. And I'm reading through the rest of the
Right.
words.
The letter of intent is intended for the December meeting of the state's board.
December 13th.
And the matter must go to town meeting in order for it to go to the state board. So if you wish to allow a process to happen where they may end up in front of the board, you can only do that by bringing it to town meeting. Otherwise, it ends tonight. And the reason why this is on the radar screen at all is that the Board of Selectmen unanimously in August of 2015 offered the EDIP program to Sunny Delight. And in terms of how to, you know, why is it available? The board voted as a matter of policy at the time to indicate that the EDIP program is something that we'd entertain discussions about. And that was carried forward to the new owner, New Mill Capital. New Mill Capital asked for the meeting that Selectmen Hebert and Knox attended in September with these gentlemen, and this is why it's being brought forward tonight.
So if we weren't able to do anything tonight, the next available meeting would be March 22nd with EACC, is that correct?
We don't have a town meeting.
Well, they're not going to get on a town meeting now unless we do it.
If you, the next opportunity, well, our next town meeting is May. So that if the Board of Selectmen doesn't bring this to the voters in November, then the next opportunity to do that is May for a quarterly meeting that I think is held in July, next July, by which time it will, you know, their timetable is to move ahead
June 21st.
sooner than that. So if you want to have the opportunity to negotiate a TIF agreement and a host community agreement and whatever else goes with that, that there are steps you have to take tonight or else you don't have that opportunity.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Have you given any consideration to what your ask is? What it is that you're looking for?
A little background, if I may. Okay, so we're acquiring this location, not as a business that that we have existing today that we're putting into the location. We're building a business from scratch. So, you know, every dollar we can put into the business is going to benefit the business, and every dollar we take out of the business for other things is coming out of the business. So again, we're really just trying to maximize the opportunity. We anticipate we'll need to invest about $12 million for the first 3 years. Converting the location to have the capacity to produce the products that consumers will demand.
Okay, so there is no specific ask. You're not looking for a 5% relief. So TIF is a job growth program which gives you a discount on your property tax.
Absolutely.
Based on the improvement to the property.
There is an ask, and based on the fact that the current location is generating the non-working location tax revenue, and when we acquire it and turn it into a business, it becomes a workable location. It increases, obviously, more taxes for the location. Certainly, more revenue for electricity and water for the town, jobs being created, revenue brought into the town. Yeah, I really think we should be pursuing our 20%.
reduction.
Okay. Ms. Knox, any comments from your side?
Obviously, it's something that that area needs. I hate to go by that every day and see that vacant. Could we vote tonight to proceed and form that committee right away and see what can be done? I hate to lose this. I mean, in the long run, it's employing a number of people. It's, I agree with what Mr. Glebe, Mr. Carr said in theory, but I don't know, we seem to be caught in a situation where I don't want to see that building go vacant.
I just wanted to offer just a comment on the increase in valuation. We did take a look through the property record cards, and the parcels that are described here now are worth about $4 million in total, because they're unoccupied. They were previously worth about $12 million. So going back into occupied status, that value would come back up, but it's not new growth. It's a shift from the residential class to the commercial class. So that's an important distinction. It provides direct relief to the residential class by putting it back in active status. By taking it out of active status, the residential class bore that increase. So it's an increase in value without an increase in taxes. It shifts it to the commercial industrial. So I just wanted to make that distinction.
No, it's a good distinction.
important.
But that presumes that the only way this is going to happen is if we do the TIF. I missed that part of the narrative where we went from great potential tenants, owners are looking to locate at a unique site that uniquely matches their operations, and why do we give, where does the tax break factor into it, other than the word is out that we give them away, to certain people? Other companies come to town and they don't enjoy this kind of break.
That is the tough situation we're in, because I definitely get that. It's a double-edged sword. I definitely get that feedback, on what basis did you grant these existing TIFs on the other end? I hate to see an empty building
Would
stay
Humphrey
empty.
be here now if we didn't have that kind of program?
No, they wouldn't.
Well, but we do know IBM would. They said so in the Boston Globe. It was nice to get the tax break, but it didn't make any difference to them coming here or not. So those sort of things do matter. And what was the other one? There was some problem with one of the other outfits that,
Well, with the IBM.
Curtis Wright,
Curtis Wright didn't survive.
okay, so we get, of the four of them, one didn't survive, one said they didn't need it.
Well, IBM, I think you'll all remember, because you were here and I was not, but in the fall of 2006, town meeting, before IBM or anything, voted to offer a TIF for 550 King Street because it was vacant. And it was 500,000 square feet of office space. In the following August, IBM said, okay, we will occupy this property. Now, would that have happened if you hadn't put that on the table? I don't think so.
That's not exactly how it went. I don't know some of those figures, but the reality is we don't have a process, and we addressed that collectively as recently as last winter or late early spring, and we agreed we should have one before we do another one of these, and here we are again.
I know. Yeah, that's true. That's shame on us for not keeping that ball alive until it hit us in the face again. That's where we're at right now. So now,
And we haven't had any significant, we had outside consultants, the Barry Bluestone, Ed Group, and we have our own economic development. Nobody's telling us this is something you need to do to promote economic development. So other than the fact that the state loves it, makes them look like they're creating jobs, and in some cases they are. We get left, picking up the tab on it.
Yeah, well, the TIF isn't necessary in order for the business to qualify for the state investment tax credit.
That's good.
That is part of the EDIP program. If you don't approve it locally, then they can't even get the state income tax credit.
That's my point, I guess.
So if we were to make a motion as presented before us tonight, with the to receive the letter of intent, the negotiation remains to happen, correct?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So,
The negotiation, we're not concluding the negotiations, but you don't even have the ability to negotiate the TIF
Right.
unless you're proceed that line. But just as importantly, and is the next motion that you're asked, and that is to put an article in a town meeting warrant so that you could actually have the voters approve a TIF in November in order to bring the matter to the state board in December.
And structurally, we can do that.
Well, I think what I would support, if I may, Madam Chair, is if we accept this letter that you folks want to pursue some type of TIF, set up a negotiating team, and then on the 26th, make some recommendations based on the negotiations, if in fact it's good for the town, or what those negotiations. That way there, at least we can sit down with the folks and see what 20% really is. So.
There is some challenge here with the fast track. I mean, we're gonna have to.
It's a huge challenge, and then
Yeah, looking
that,
at the days
cobble
in
together a
between
group,
now and
yeah.
then.
Yeah, I mean, it was right up till the time that if we had, the original,
I'm gonna open up the
Yeah,
hearing
okay.
and just suspend it for now.
right, it is a problem for the fast track.
Okay, we have a public hearing at 8:15 and we're nearly done here, so, but we're gonna open the hearing, put it on hold.
All right. Littleton Board of Selectmen will, what, you got
You
it?
can see it.
Yeah, I think this is okay.
Big enough font?
Yeah, it's much better, bolder. Littleton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, October 17th, 2016, at 8:15 PM at the Littleton Town Offices, Room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, on host community agreements for 2 proposed medical marijuana cultivation sites located within the town's registered marijuana dispensary, RMD overlay district, established by Article 17 of the May 5th, 2014 annual town meeting as follows. Sanctuary Medicinals, Inc. of 234 Taylor Street, lots R01-34-0. Mission, Massachusetts, Inc. for 245 Fourth Street, R11-3-0. Both entities are applicants for RMD registered marijuana dispensary licenses from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Each is looking for a medical marijuana cultivation site in Littleton under the MDPH regulations. An applicant must submit a letter of support or non-opposition from the Board of Selectmen of the town in which the cultivation site is located. Where support is expressed, it can come from the host community agreement between the applicant and the town. Copies of the proposed host community agreements are available online at www.littletonma.org. Littleton zoning bylaw provides the only one RMD shall be permitted within Littleton, subsection 173-189D. The planning board is the special permit granting authority under the RMD zoning bylaw. Comments may be submitted in writing to the Selectmen Board, Selectmen Town Administrator's Office, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, by noon, Friday, October 14th, 2016, or in person at the hearing. Littleton Board of Selectmen, Melissa Hebert, Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Make a
So it's
motion.
open.
I'll make a motion to suspend the public hearing.
Let the people know what's going on.
Yeah, we'll reconvene right after we're done
Until
with
the
this.
conclusion of the
Till
previous
conclusion
agenda
of our discussion with the Economic Development Incentive Program.
Second.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, just give us a couple more minutes here, guys. Okay,
Does everybody know what we're doing right now?
we're putting
We had
the,
to open the public hearing because it was scheduled for 8:15, so we opened it, and we're just suspending it until we finish this matter that we were already in discussion with. So,
nearly there, I think. Okay, where were we at there?
So I was making a comment about
Oh, yeah, fast track.
the fast track.
Right on.
How difficult, the situation we're putting ourselves in.
I appreciate the thought, I just don't think we can seriously do what we committed to doing in terms of developing a process that's applicable across the board in a week's time.
Yep.
And again, I remain to be convinced on the merits of this specific case, and a lot of businesses come to town and they do us great services, and they're not looking for a tax break, and they're not getting one.
Be specific. It seems like the last large companies that have moved into town have all had TIFs.
Again, I would,
Market Basket didn't have a TIF, the Marriott, they didn't have a TIF.
none of the point did. Right?
Well, they got a $1.8 million grant.
The developer, the town did.
No, we did, the town did. We got a MassWorks grant of 1.8 million
Right.
to defray the cost of that development.
But for the
So
actual,
that was public money that was spent on a private business.
that's fine, but
Happened to
it's,
be state money.
but it's not coming at the expense of the Littleton taxpayer. Or at the disadvantage of other businesses.
So again, we are fully supportive of you guys, but what you're seeing here is we need to get our ducks in a row with process and policy on this one, and we're at a crossroads with that. We don't have it yet, so now we're trying to kind of do the best right thing. And I'm scared to do the wrong thing, to be honest with you. I hate to scare the businesses away as well, but I also don't want to leave money on the table that are our taxpayers' money. So, would anyone like to?
So, I mean, we are in a tough spot, because we don't want to have the business not come here and realize that tax revenue that right now, we're, to Bonnie's point, there's a burden on the residential taxpayer right now, with that property being vacant. So, by us not having the policy in place, not having procedures in place, we could be biting off our noses to spite our faces by not at least getting into a point where we can do some negotiations.
Well, why don't we ask them, you folks coming, whether you get a tax break or not, or are you coming in the door in contingent on that in August when you approach the town?
We are coming in whether we get the break or not.
All right. Thank you for your
Appreciate
honesty
it.
on that. That's
What the biggest part of the process that I've said from the beginning is I don't think that we should be showing our cards from the get-go and saying, hey, come to us, because we've got this TIF thing. So, I mean, it's not, any big business knows what's available, I would hope. So these guys are seasoned enough that I would imagine you likely would have asked us for something. We weren't coming to you knocking on your door saying, let's apply for some relief.
Just to be clear, we had asked before we signed the sale agreement, but it wasn't contingent on the sale.
Okay, I appreciate that as well.
Yes,
That's
we
good.
we
need
met with
that
them in
clarity.
early September, and they signed afterwards.
Okay. So I think that in good faith, I appreciate you in good faith telling us your intentions. We can make this motion to move forward, try to do what we can do, get into negotiations. If we aren't able to get to a deliverable and get to town meeting, and town meeting, or we do get to something and town meeting says, no, we don't want to do it, at least I think we've gotten off on the right foot with
My issue with the motion,
partner.
Chuck, is that we're calling for the TIF and pilot committee to convene
immediately.
immediately. So, if we're gonna even entertain anything, I would suggest we do it the way we did the other TIFs. Assign a board member or two to
we already have done,
negotiate.
actually.
Yeah, to negotiate and then come back to the board and really essentially wipe out this motion to say that.
I think you're right, Jimmy.
We're gonna accept your letter of intent. Let's set up the negotiating team. On the 26th, we come back and say, look, you know what, 20% is too much. They're not moving. We're done, or support, or whatever the board decides.
That's probably the right way to go, Jim. We've negotiated in the past as the board. We haven't had the committee set up, so not maybe, I think that is the only way that we can go forward, and if anything is going to happen, that would be the only way that we could make something happen.
And really, as far as the town meeting is concerned, we make that decision once we get a report back from the negotiation people.
And do we need a parallel track to still go down that path?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is
Just the
we've
motion.
delayed the process enough. Now, we have, some folks that wanna come in town, do the right thing. We should be able to react to that, and we can't react to it because we haven't set this board up,
Right.
this committee up.
And we would have time on October 26th, we would still have the necessary 14 days prior to a town meeting. So if you wanted to vote this motion tonight, you could do, as modified, have this, instead of the committee, have the selectmen do negotiation, and then report back on the 26th. Then if you want to go forward, on the 26th, you could do this motion, if you wish, of calling the special town meeting.
Okay, so we could wait for 6B.
You don't need to do that tonight, you could do it
Okay.
on the 26th.
Okay, and.
But you couldn't do it after the 26th.
And thankfully, I'm in the state, so I can.
All right, so
Play that part.
I will make a motion for the Board of, were you ready to do it, Chuck?
Yeah.
Go ahead then.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to receive a letter of intent under Economic Development Incentive Program for CFP Inc. of Air, Mass. for redevelopment of the former Sunny D/Very Fine facility at 3 and 20 Harvard Road, and further pursuant to Financial Management Policy, Section 11, to refer negotiations of a tax increment financing TIF agreement for said property to the Board of Selectmen negotiation team with the terms of said TIF agreement to be subject to approval by the full Board of Selectmen and town meeting.
I'll second that with the understanding that I'm still opposition, but I appreciate the effort that's being made, want to support it.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I apologize, Jerry, and I might want to kind of shut this conversation down, but you had your hand up, so.
Very quickly,
Name and address, we know who you are, but.
Third Opioid New State Road. Just one comment, I think that it's not gonna look too good for the voters to see something rushed to town meeting at the last possible minute after the warrant's been closed, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd hate to see what could ultimately benefit the town be voted down just because people don't like the way it was brought. Is there any reason why this couldn't be deferred to annual town meeting? Would that affect their timeline too much?
Well, because the deal's going forward far beyond, much earlier than when it could be brought to the state agency. So it'll be old by then.
Like I said, I'm just concerned. I know there's been a lot of voter anger at all levels, and I hate to see backlash against the board for something that has the appearance of being snuck in at the last minute.
Appreciate you looking out for us, Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else then for now?
Table 6B.
So the two selectmen are myself and Mr. Knox, right? Okay, and I am around, so we should get things on calendars as soon as possible.
With that?
You with me, buddy?
Very good, okay, so we're,
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
thank you so
it.
much.
Appreciate your
Thank
honesty, thank you.
We'll be in touch quickly.
See you guys with that.
Okay. 8:15.
I don't know, you guys know what that stands for?
He goes to the gym.
Like Pepsi and cans.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Like Cliff Clavin.
Okay, so 8:15, public hearing, medical marijuana cultivation site applicants, host community agreements, sanctuary medicinals in Mission, Massachusetts. Let's see, I don't know if everyone can fit up front, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you're all right where you are. Maybe a couple of folks might want to come up to give us a little intro. All right, so we're 6 minutes, so that's better than an hour and a half late, like the last time I saw one in this group. So there you go, we're making improvements. Okay, so sanctuary is the first one on the agenda list, so why don't we start there? And this was the one that Kalinsky gave us in the white. Is it also in there?
Yes.
Oh,
No, this is the, Clancy gave it to us.
okay, yeah. Okay. All right, so, yeah, sanctuary. Okay. So why don't we, so Keith, the mode of operation here, each can give us a little overview. Then we take public input.
If you, I don't know if you have exhibits to show. I took some of the, what I've done here just for purposes of the screen. This shows the two sites that are the subject of the hearing. This is the location, 234 Taylor Street, the proposed site for sanctuary medicinals, and the dark green is the RMD overlay district, and the area that's surrounded in yellow is the proposed site, which is within that district. This is the other one at 245 Foster Street, which is also located within the RMD district that was voted by town meeting. So this was the site of, at 234 Taylor, that Sanctuary Medicinals had reviewed with us at our meeting during the month of September. This was a site plan that they had. I didn't put any of the other slides that were up, those are available if need be. But perhaps the chair would just want to have Sanctuary make a brief presentation to start the hearing.
That would be wonderful. Great to see you guys again.
Good to see you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. We are looking for a letter of support, non-opposition, to locate a cultivation facility only at 234 Taylor Street, which is in a designated zone. We are planning to purchase the building and own it, and look forward to being a very long-term community player here in Milton.
Very good. Okay, and maybe some of the, just for folks if they're just tuning in, or I see a large number of folks here in the audience, and I think this is true for both applicants. So cultivation only means there's no store shop or anything like that. Security measures and plans have been vetted by numerous bodies, including our own safety officials, chief of police, and others. You'll be creating jobs in the sense of a variety of things, including, horticulture, or however you want to call it, agriculture, even baking, trucks, although not a lot of truck traffic. I think I remember 2 trucks a week.
It would be a van.
A van, that's right.
Our transports would be limited to probably 2 to 3 maximum trips per week.
Per week, okay. What were some of the other key takeaways we had?
That we're an existing license holder in another state. We're the first to cultivate and the first to dispense in the state of New Hampshire. We run a very tight ship, and our chief of police in the city of Rochester, where our cultivation facility is located, came and spoke on our behalf at the last meeting. And seeing that there's a lot of people there, I wonder if there's any possible way to play our short video, if that would give some of the townspeople some information on. I don't know if that's possible.
Maybe even before we get into the individual applicants, there are new faces in the room. I wonder whether you or Keith might give a little recap that, the planning board has a process, state law indicates that, we have to by law provide for, zoning for it, whatever, our whole.
Sure.
Right, that's a good point. That back in 2014, town meeting adopted a registered marijuana dispensary, RMD, zoning overlay district. And the reason we did that is because if a local zoning bylaw doesn't allow so-called RMD facilities in any particular location, then they are allowed anywhere in the town. So through the process that we went through, you may recall there was a moratorium on RMD districts during which the planning board did a study. They identified that the location for the RMD district should be in the industrial, basically the industrial areas, which are shown in green, but also that certain uses, is it 500 feet within, from certain excluded uses, would be areas where the RMD use would not be allowed. So if you look at on the plan, the green areas are by and large the industrial zoning districts in town, and then on top of that there are certain uses which serve to exclude the RMD use. So what we are left with is both of these sites that we have here. You can see at the intersection of Route 2 and 495 that there are 2 lots, one at 45 Foster, the other at 234 Taylor, which are within the district, which are not a near and excluded use, and that those are proposed uses, proposed locations for RMD cultivation sites in Littleton. Now, both of the applicants that we have before us tonight are pursuing their RMD licenses with the state's Department of Public Health. And the MDPH rules provide that in order for a cultivation or dispensary site to be considered by the state, there needs to be a letter of support or non-opposition by the local Board of Selectmen. Without that letter, without that, which can come in the form of a host community agreement, which is what's on the table here. Without that expression of support or non-opposition, then a particular site cannot proceed in the state licensing process. So both applicants are looking to get from the Board of Selectmen an expression of support or non-opposition. Now, under Littleton's zoning bylaw, even though we have two applicants tonight who are both proceeding through the state licensing process, Littleton's zoning bylaw limits the number of RMDs that we can have in town to be issued a special permit by the planning board, who is the special permit granting authority. Our zoning bylaw limits the number of RMDs, licensees, to one. So even if, let's say, even if both were to proceed to the state licensing procedure and both get their state licenses and then come back to Littleton, both came back to Littleton for the special permit, the planning board can only issue one. That's what our zoning bylaw says. So in essence, what's in front of the Board of Selectmen tonight is the matter of whether you want to approve host community agreements with two entities, with one, or with none. That's the range of policy options that the Board of Selectmen has.
Great suggestion. Thank you, Keith. Okay. So I do think we have the time, let's see, 8:30, we've got a half an hour. Yeah, about 3 minutes.
4 minutes?
4 minutes.
Do you have that queued, Keith?
Do I have the video?
So, just so the public knows, both parties that are before us tonight sat down initially with the chair, myself, Keith Bergman, and Maren Toohill, to express their interest. And that's kind of what started the process. The two entities came before us, kind of an interview, essentially, is what it was. They let us know what their intent was. We asked some questions, had many reservations initially, and they answered a lot of the questions that we had. They each came before us, did a presentation for the public, and opportunity for the public to ask questions, opportunity for the board to ask questions, and much of that was done. And so now what lies before us is the opportunity for us to
If I may, Madam Chair, just to add to what Chuck said, we took it to the next level to have a public hearing. There was no regulation, there's no law for the Board of Selectmen to have a public hearing. We wanted to hear from any of the abutters, anybody in town. So we went the extra step to say, let's have a public hearing, let's listen to the folks in town, let's make sure that their concerns are heard. So we went above and beyond. I think tonight, the host community agreement is just that. It's your community, it's our community, and we need to make sure that if we select one, and I'm saying we only need one. There's a license for one, there's no need to approve two. My feeling is, if we're gonna review the host community agreements, let's approve one, move it forward, and then the planning board can make their decision and go through the process of the special permitting process. So, again, I'd like, Madam Chair, just to, if there's anything else Sanctuary would like to say, let's
go over their host, and then, let's listen to Mission.
Okay.
If I may say something. Sure. I think it'd be important for both applicants to point out to the people here exactly the security, because I think some of the anxiety is people have no idea. The last presentation you made when I was here was excellent. It solved a lot of things going through my head, but if you could take a couple minutes now and explain
Sure.
how no one can get in there and.
Absolutely. Well, some of that is in the video that we have, which really depicts some of our security measures that we use in our current facility in Rochester.
Have to reboot.
In Rochester, New Hampshire. As far as people coming into the facility, that simply can't happen. The only people that are ever allowed into the facility are employees who have been vetted by the state and by federal agencies. The facility in Rochester, the chief went on record after reviewing and going through all of our policies and procedures and our security measures by saying that it is the most secure building in the entire city. And he's not kidding when he says that. It's very discreet from the outside. There's no sign. There's no indication whatsoever that there's actually I'd like to call it a pharmaceutical organic grow indoors. And there's different levels of security in the building itself where biometric or retina scans and things of that nature are used so that employees only go to the area of their function, meaning they just can't walk around the facility. It doesn't work like that. If someone is only supposed to be in the extraction lab, they come in through the level 1 area, and then they go into biometric access, which would be level 3, and are granted access into that portion of the facility. So everybody has an ID card on them, and it's scanned and by radio frequency, and that's how the entire facility works. And all the security systems are backed up both electronically, meaning batteries and things of that nature, so nothing can go down. The system is also available, I'm talking about the camera systems, which cover every inch of the facility, are available to both the state police and the local police. They can log in and see real time, the camera footage and things of that nature. And the chief, a question was asked last time when our chief was here, has there been any concerns or any issues whatsoever? And we have had none. And the property that we're in is in an industrial zone. I'm speaking on Rochester. And there are houses, residents that live within 100 feet to the entrance of our facility. So there's absolutely no smell, where we know the drill, we know how to mitigate odors, and there's no noise. You would never know that we're there.
And keep in mind, in this particular market, we have a 36,000 square foot building sitting on 6.34 acres of land. It's an existing structure, we don't plan on expanding it, so staying within the 4 walls.
And that building itself is a very secure shell to start with. We're talking concrete block and metal and
steel frame and steel roof.
Are you talking about New Hampshire or the one?
Sorry.
The one here.
The one, guys, just,
Sorry.
any of the questions have to come through the chair.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Hopefully we can get the video up, because that does go into a little bit of our security system, and it's a good production.
Okay, how are we looking here, Keith?
Technical difficulties.
Can you get to our website, by any chance?
We can,
No,
see, there was community agreements.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're here about.
And we will take comments from the public. Let's just let them kind of get through some intro stuff, and then we'll open it up. And also, we need to hear from Mission. Sorry, thank you. Okay, host community agreement. Who wants to take us through the highlights of that?
Sure. So what we propose is we try to do something very different than some of the other community host agreements throughout the state. And we really wanted to demonstrate our commitment to the community. Aside from the money aspect of the community host agreement, we also put in there that we would like to donate no less than 150 man-hours per year to be used to participate in community service activities, including but not limited to town-sponsored educational programs on public health and drug abuse prevention, senior assistance, community cleanup, veterans assistance. I think that's something that will go a long way with the townspeople, where they can witness that Sanctuary is very active in the community, and that's exactly and precisely what we do in the communities we're in right now in New Hampshire. Getting to the money side of things, I propose that for years 1 and 2, we pay $50,000 each. For the third year and fourth year of operations, I propose we pay $75,000 each to the
This is
town.
above and beyond all property taxes.
Oh, yes, this is above and beyond all property taxes.
People want to come here,
Absolutely.
they're gonna pay to come here.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh, the
We're not
dichotomy.
looking for a tip or.
Yeah, and maybe just to that point, so this host community agreement is like Jim said, it's an agreement with us as the host and the entity that wants to come and be a part of our community, and so this is what they're willing to give us in addition to the tax dollars. Sorry, go ahead.
And then in the fifth year, in the succeeding years of operations after that, $100,000. And then every year, no less than $5,000 will be donated to a local nonprofit charity. That's pretty much the highlights of this agreement, besides all the other language in there required by law.
That town council pays attention to.
Yes.
It's a very standard, solid agreement.
Okay, very good. Should we,
It's the mission.
yeah, let's do that, and maybe we can round back to the video if we can overcome some technical difficulties.
Well, if people have site-specific questions, we may want to give them a chance to ask them while one group is up, rather than the other.
Okay,
I don't know,
sure.
that's up to the.
Good idea.
Yeah, so right now, let's do exactly to Selectman Glavy's point. If you have a specific question for sanctuary, let's do that. If it's a general question, we'll open up for general questions. So I think we do actually have one. Yes, sir, name and
Yes,
address.
what is the-
Sorry, name and address, please.
My name is Sami Aslam.
Thank
I
you.
live on Jubilee Way.
Okay.
What is the annual production capacity? And we also want to know the scale. Like, I have no idea, like when you say production capacity, what percentage of the Massachusetts demand you will fulfill from this particular capacity?
Okay, that question has to be answered in a few answers. So what percent of demand of the Massachusetts patient population?
Yeah.
Well, we have 3 licenses, so we have secured sites in probably 7 municipalities right now. And we're in the process of getting letters of non-opposition support so we can move forward on our dispensary side operations. So we'll have 3 dispensaries in this state. And as far as patient population goes, a good statistic to use is approximately 2% of the population of the state will utilize medicinal marijuana. And what percent of that population base really depends on exactly which dispensing locations we have. All our dispensing locations at this point are located in the North Shore. So we'll be serving quite a few patients. As far as the build-out goes, we'll do the build-out of this facility. Now, again, nothing will be done to the exterior, but on the inside of the facility, it will be done in phases. So we don't have to build out the entire facility all at once, even though we're the owner and sole tenant. But we will build out approximately 20,000 square feet of that 36,000 square feet. And we did do a mock build-out plan, which can be viewed on the website. I believe Keith uploaded that.
Okay, but in pounds or
Yep,
kilograms per
pounds.
year, what's the number?
By year 3, I'd say between the 3,500 and 5,500 pounds per year.
Thank you.
But a lot less to start.
Any other questions specific for sanctuary? Okay, all right, thank you very much, sanctuary. So let's go ahead and hear from.
Don't anywhere, though.
Yeah, don't
No,
go,
no, you
don't
can
go
go-
far. But
Still go
yeah,
far.
let's have the mission.
No, we'll go.
Come on down.
How are you going?
Good evening, good, how are you doing? Lovely to see you again.
Good to see you all. Nice to see you all for the first time. Sick of my presentation by now.
No. Okay, so let's do a similar type of thing. If you guys could kind of nutshell some of the key points about your operation, and then we
Sure.
can get into the host community agreement after, but.
Mission, Massachusetts came out of Forefront Ventures. Forefront Ventures started as one of the preeminent consultants in the medical marijuana space. And really the claim to fame for Forefront Ventures is they developed a lot of the policies and procedures and best practices for clients across the country who are running these facilities. And the idea is we want clients to institute these policies and procedures to really professionalize the industry. We started Mission Partners about 2 years ago, of which I'm the CEO, and we started right here in Massachusetts. And we are pursuing licenses, not on behalf of our clients, but on our own behalf. And the thought there was, if we want to run a very professional operation, let's go in there and do it ourselves. Our partner in all this, and just sort of address the security up front, is a group called the Windmill Group, who are Homeland Security experts. They have experience doing security for Republican and Democratic national conventions, the G8 Summit, Major League All-Star Game, and they also have a very healthy business securing medical marijuana facilities across the country. They have been working with the town of Quincy, just had one open there, so that would be their relationships with the fire and police departments are great, and a lot of the same policies and procedures that we were just talking about a couple minutes are pretty standard to this industry right now. It's very secure, and there are very strict protocols you need to follow, not only from the Department of Public Health, but additional from our security provider. So we have a provisional license in Worcester. We have negotiated a host agreement with the town of Burlington, and we're looking for a third location to dispense. What we're looking to do here is 245 Foster Street. It's a 30-acre plot, and the thought would be we'd put 250,000 square foot facilities to grow facilities on. It's the lot is very close to the T. One of the things outside of the host agreement I wanted to discuss was we aren't going to need all 30 acres of that land. There have been some, thought, we've reached out to the T about, potentially having additional parking parsed off of that land to see if that would make sense for the town. But our host agreement is really pretty straightforward. We in addition to the taxes, we are proposing $25,000 in the first year, $50,000 in the second year, $75,000 in the third year, and $100,000 from there on out, in addition to all the property taxes. And we are, we are local players. I live here in Metro West. Ben lives on the South Shore. The entire management team and board for Mission, Massachusetts is in-state. We make a pretty big point of being partners in the community that we're in. We actually live here. So that, in a nutshell, is Mission, Massachusetts.
That's great. And like I mentioned earlier, all those same things are true for you guys in terms of security. You went over creating jobs, similar type of deal. In terms of truck traffic, minimal.
Truck traffic is about the same.
It's about the same.
It's two to three trucks a week.
And maybe you could answer the same question about volumes. I forget exactly how
What's
you.
the
Capacity of production.
It's hard to say, depending on how we're going to build them out. We're going to build them out in increments. Just build out all that capacity at once. But what did we say, Ben?
But hopefully, if we get to year one with 1,200 pounds, to progress upwards, maybe reach that 3,000 to 4,000 year three.
Yep.
That would hit our projections.
Okay.
But there's a lot of variability in growing, different environment, creating new environments. So.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, Madam Chair, what type of buildings are you going to be building?
We're proposing state-of-the-art greenhouses, and so in these greenhouses, people picture greenhouses, these plastic hoops. No, there's steel walls, they have glass roofs, double panel glass, state-of-the-art, they're being used in Colorado, Arizona, they're all secure. And by using the greenhouses, it's a greener approach to doing it, but we still will use a lot of power from the town, but it'll use less, it'll be a greener operation than running on the inside. So, if you want, I can show you a picture of one. There's something similar to this. This is actually, these are at UMass Amherst. I went there for the agricultural school, so I've teamed up with one of my own professors to design the facilities.
The square footage of those facilities will be 50,000 square feet?
So each of these is usually about 6,000 square feet.
Each bay.
Each bay. So we'll line, as you add them on.
So maybe 8 of them?
8 of them, and then you can add on. So, we'd probably start off with 6 at the minimum, and add on as we need them. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
I asked a question before, I'm just gonna ask it again, because it's a different forum tonight. As far as, so with the greenhouse, there's venting and all that kind of stuff. Odor control.
Yeah, we'll work with the state-of-the-art mitigation. There's, a system on the fans that releases oil that binds the odor, that kind of does a drop, it's almost like a Febreze effect. It drops that. We'll also use charcoal filters, state-of-the-art mitigation. A lot of it came from other noxious industries like waste, landfill, poultry farms and whatnot, so that have worse odors. They've already found a way to do it, so the vendors that we're gonna work with, we can't guarantee 100%, but it would be in the high 90s.
Just another question, you mentioned you've got an HCA with Burlington. Is that operational?
No, that'll be a dispensary only, based on the Worcester facility that's gonna come online.
So Worcester's gonna be another cultivation site?
Yeah, Worcester's a cultivation site and a dispensary, and we just got our provisional license for that last week. We're hoping to submit in Burlington in the next couple weeks our siting profile, which sort of takes you to the next step where you can build out once you get through that siting profile stage.
What is the timeline from when you got the letter from Burlington to going live?
Oh, we got the letter from Burlington last fall. So, we got that very early in the process. Ironically, the Worcester one came later in the process, and that's where we needed to, one of our growth facilities, so.
All right, so assuming that we issued a letter of non-opposition or support, Miyagi-like, what would your
timeline be?
You go live date be for us? So
let's
if we issued you a go forward letter tonight,
yeah,
what would you see as a
Go live on the construction date, or go live on the open?
Yes.
The open?
The open? Say October?
Yeah, probably about right. It would
Probably
be
about
late.
right, in October?
Yeah, probably.
Of
Next year.
Next year.
October of 2017?
Yeah.
So you've got the land secured?
Where it's tied to this deal.
Any other questions, comments?
I want, what's your final product? Is it a salve, is it a pill type thing, or?
It'll be all those products that the patients demand.
About half the market is flower, so that people will smoke.
Straight plant.
And then the other half of the market is typically, they're called the marijuana infused products. So, whether that's edibles, whether that's oils that go into a vape cartridge, or something of that sort.
Patches.
Right. So in this facility, we would
Be extracting and
we would be
commercial
not only
kitchen.
growing the plant, but you're also extracting the oil from the plant to make those marijuana infused products.
So those labs or extraction facilities would be inside of the greenhouses as well?
They'd be in the head house, which is a more secure building. So the head house usually supports the greenhouse. So inside the head house, you'll have all your mechanicals and whatnot. And then in one section, we'd have an extraction lab.
All right, so I don't know what a head house is, so I'm just gonna say there's 8 of these 6,000 square foot greenhouses going this way. Does the head
Right.
house tie them all together?
So they're
down
gonna
the
run
end?
north-south, all the flower houses, and then the one that'll run east-west on the end will be.
At the end cap
there's
of
no-
all of them.
there's not the maximum sunlight on that side, so that's where you do all your mechanicals. So there'll be one building along the end that'll support those.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, this is a picture of that house. So much a question, but I just. So yeah, there's no walls and whatnot. This would be the facility for the mechanicals and the head houses, so any lab and extraction work, baking will be done in here, more secure as well, and then out here will be the growing. So these kind of mock-offs of what it would look like. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't have any specific questions, but from the two presentations before, it seems to me that the biggest distinction for the public to consider beyond the specifics of the host community proposals on the sites, the one we had seen earlier, the sanctuary one is the reuse of an existing industrial building that's housed at a number of different companies, and they're not proposing any change to the site other than what's happening internal. Now, you folks are building on property, could we perhaps take a look at the site? This is new construction down by the highway. I just want people to have a sense of what we're talking about here behind the train station. And from our earlier discussions, those two green sites incorporate what? Is that all of the greenhouses plus your head house? Yes, would be in those two layouts. Those layouts are not exact. The reason we wanted to push it to the back as kind of a land design, we have natural security from the train and the highway there, and it's kind of we figured it wouldn't abut, any of the residential areas. We're trying to get as far away as we can and put it more in the industrial corner of the property. And there's some gradation down too, isn't there, toward the highway? There is a little topography, and actually, that's about a 10 or 11 acre site, is that what you said? I'm trying to remember. This is 33 acres. 33 acres, okay, and but you're not gonna do anything else with the rest of the property, is that right? Not at this time. We need about probably 10 for this project, and we'll site them the way we are, the topography. Well, not this time, so what would the license, what would that require? Further, if you were to get it and then build what you have there to expand on that site, what would that require? To expand to more grow? Yeah, I mean, you say not at this time, so I'm just asking. Well, we wouldn't really ever use any more than that space, but we do have all that extra land, and it's open to different uses. Like we said, we've reached out to the T about acquiring, they had a dream about expanding that parking lot. Yeah. And then, there could just be open space over there to keep us a nice natural buffer from any existing residential neighborhoods. We'll keep all that forest over there. Right. We want it to be discreet, you really won't even know we're back there. You might see it from the highway, but again, these buildings, they'll be state of the art. They'll be something to be proud to look at. And with the site topography, they kind of be set into the hill and that southwest exposure. So when we do more site work, to get closer to it. But yeah, we want it to be, not a nuisance to the town. So we in the back, behind the parking lot, with the highway, and security on one side, train on the other.
Or any questions for Christian?
Just I got a question for town council. You have a chance to read this?
I didn't have a chance to read it. Yeah, so I think the money is pretty close to the same as in both of them.
Yep.
I would note that in this one, there's a reopener after 5 years, so the parties have an opportunity to renegotiate. And I guess the other main difference would be that the sanctuary has the $5,000 to a local charity that this doesn't have. But much of the boilerplate is.
So, in the 150 man hours?
Yeah, correct.
Any other questions, board comments? Okay, now we'll see if the public has any specific questions for Mission. Yes, sir.
How would they access
Name and
that?
address, sorry.
Joe back on Foster Street. How would they access that property? And how high will the buildings be?
Okay, so we'd access, I guess we'd check to see there's one access across, there's a bridgeway that through there. So we'd access through there into the back corner, and minimal impact is, there would be no signage at the street. maybe a small sign that, this big, that we're gonna be in the back. And then these buildings, the heights of these buildings are about 22 feet.
About how high?
22.
22 feet?
22 feet, and with the grades, so that's actually a low spot down there in the corner. So they'll be, a little tall, similar to a regular house.
Thank you.
Any other questions for mission specific? Yes, name and
My name
address,
is
please.
Kristen Horn. I also live on Foster Street, 217. I had questions regarding access through other points in the neighborhood and how we would protect against that. I also have some questions regarding Littleton Town water usage, and that's actually for both companies, and how that will impact our water usage as well as the prices of our water, because water usage for these types of facilities is great for these plants, and how then we're going to collect the runoff and potential contamination coming from the facilities as our town is on septic tank, and that would impact our environment.
Just on that last topic, as far as contaminants, the state, the Department of Public Health requires us to have tight tanks on site, so all the water is captured and then take it away off site. Like I said, our only access plan was to come in off Foster Street and kind of go in the back, there'll be no back entrances or whatever, so it kind of all goes out that one entrance, out the front. As far as security, we won't have big fences around it and whatnot, we'll do that with cameras. I want to say DPH requires, we almost have a half-mile scan on our cameras around the houses, so, the greenhouses, so they'll be secured from the outside. I believe your other question was on consumption of water. They do use a lot, but it's not as much as you would think. It might sound like a lot, but 5,000 to 10,000 gallons a day, which.
And we did include, I'm sorry to interrupt, Scott Edwards, our light and water director, general manager, thank you. And he took a look at the expectations from both sides and felt comfortable with meeting that capacity. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So it sounds a lot, but it's not as much as, like a bottling plant would use or a farm would use on a daily basis as well.
And just a follow-up question too, just how does this impact our residential community on Foster Street, both from like a resale value, as well as, the new community that's going up across the train station will have approximately 30 homes that are going up there. And, we have to disclose that these facilities are going into our neighborhoods. And, I just recently moved to Littleton from Indiana. It was not disclosed to me that we bought our property abutting to a overlay district. I know, for right or wrong, if that had been disclosed to me, I would not have bought my property on Foster Street. So I have concerns about how this will change our footprint in Littleton. And that's really, I guess, more to the selectmen.
Yeah. And, okay, so two things. So one, a couple of those first questions I'd like to hear. And
I
then
just thought I'd touch on the water situation because we've been in the cultivation business for a little while now. And what we actually do is we design systems that we actually had an engineer, our HVAC engineer, on site today prior to this meeting. And we're trying to achieve a recycle rate of about 90 to 95% of the water used. So what that means is as the plants perspire, we dehumidify the air. We can recapture that water, recycle it, put it back through our old systems, and reuse it. So believe it or not, the way that we'll be handling that indoor environment, or I like to call it a micro environment, we'll be reusing a lot of that water and recapturing it.
What about the waste?
The waste, we have a septic on site, right? There's minimal water leaving that facility. There's no, as far as like, so everything is automated inside the actual flowering room, so the plants are spiked, meaning they come off of a system that fully controls the rate of fertigation as well as irrigation. Kind of like a rain bird, if you can picture it outside your house, for those people who have sprinklers. So there's no really runoff coming out of the plants, so to speak. It's dosed for the exact amount needed. They are on special tables called flood and drains that will take the water, bring it back, but we'll grab that water and put it back into the RO systems and recycle it. But if you looked at our flower room now we have 7 flower rooms, but if you looked at them, you would never see any water on those tables. It's very, very tightly controlled to produce consistent plants, consistent medicine.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
I'll address the question in regards to for the Board of Selectmen. As Mr. Bergman said earlier in his opening statement, we had to delineate where these overlay district was. If we didn't, it would go all over town. So that's how these overlay districts actually came about. Mandated by the state to say, hey, give us and make it reasonable, because if you're too restrictive, we won't approve it, and we won't let you, we'll make our own district for you if you are too restrictive. So that's how the overlay districts came about.
Yeah, so my follow-up to that though is, and I know that this has already been decided on, so this isn't gonna change. Just that I don't understand how it was considered an industrial area with all that residential property on that street. And so I'm just gonna leave that at that, but.
So town council and the town administrator could probably answer it better than I could, but so when we set those zones, if you have the map with the circles on it, Keith, there are certain areas that are restricted because they were 150 feet within a school district or, a daycare or so a church. So there were certain circles that were made that said, okay, they can't go here, they can't go there, they can't go here. Master General Law, Chapter 40 says if you don't allow for a certain use, then your whole town's open, and they can go anywhere. And whether it's a adult entertainment facility or whatever. So we have to try to mitigate that as much as possible. So in doing that, we created this zoning overlay.
And during the period of the moratorium from 2013 to 2014, the planning board went through quite a deliberative process, a number of public hearings, and finally settled on those areas of town that had already been zoned as, rightly or wrongly, as industrial. That is, if you own that property, if you own the Nordblum property, then you are allowed to put industrial uses on it. And so the determination was, if it's zoned as industrial, that is where the planning board thought it was reasonable to allow this use. So
that didn't change.
Town meeting approved that.
That didn't change, so the zoning around town, there's certain places that you can do certain stuff. And the zoning bylaws dictate what you can do where.
If there were a school across the street from the Nordblum properties, then there would be a red circle, and even though it's zoned industrial, it would be out of bounds. But there is none.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other mission-specific questions? We'll do general questions right on. Yes, Gino, name and address.
Gino, Board of Health. I advise the selectmen to put this on the ballot and let the people decide before you people make the decision. Let the public know what's going on here.
Thank you, Gino.
So I have to say thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's part of why, to Selectman Carr's comments at the beginning, we're having the public hearing here. I don't know that we have to do anything more than that at this time.
No, and the other point about the special permit granting authority, and under the zoning bylaw, if the planning board receives an application for an RMD license under the zoning bylaw, then they would make a determination whether to grant or not, and it would not be subject to a plebiscite or anything else. It would be a decision that the planning board gets to make.
They're just gonna make it, yeah. Okay, very good. Any other questions for mission? We seem to have gone into general questions anyway, so just general questions. Yes, Jerry.
Jerry Opie, I'm not gonna be a wise guy and ask if this went for a joint committee, but.
But there it is.
Well, you never know. We did have
All
joint
seriousness,
meetings with the planning board.
the big reason why this is an issue is it's still illegal at the federal level. And it seems to me the biggest liability is if the DEA decides to enforce things at the federal level, aren't these operations liable?
That's,
That's
they
their
take that
problem.
risk.
That's their risk, not our risk. There's no risk to the town.
And the other thing on the HCA's, it seems like the payments go up and then are at a fixed rate forever. Shouldn't there be an escalator built in the same way it was done for like the cell towers and other long-term agreements that, take into account inflation? And finally, up on Foster Street, you're basically taking an undeveloped site and putting greenhouses, which are realistically low tax revenue, as opposed to Taylor Street where you were using an industrial building. What are the alternate uses for that Foster Street site? Would it support, let's say, an office or a manufacturing facility that could bring in much greater revenue long-term than just a greenhouse?
I've been here 9 years. There have been countless proposals for the use of the Nordblum property. Many ideas have been proposed by that property owner and by many.
Really not even
entities
before us
that
for that
looked at it.
question, to be quite honest with
And
you.
it's,
You know, we're not land
there's never
developers, Jerry.
been, there's never been any other use that's
Yeah.
come forward.
It's zoned industrial, and that's what it sits at.
You can't change the zoning. Could you change the zoning and put like apartment houses there or condos or something like that?
Those aren't allowed under any zone right now.
Over Jim's dead body.
Only at town meeting through.
Yeah, town meeting vote.
Town meeting could change the zoning
Yes.
on that. Planning board would have to initiate it or vote on it, but that's, with the proposal on the table, we have to act on the
No,
proposal
just a
in front of
question, I
us.
just wanted to know.
And I hope in both cases
Yeah, and
that
town
requires
meeting has
suppression
not
system.
shown any affinity to allowing increased residential development, that's sort of been a non-starter because of the impact on the property tax.
We've got one more question here.
Yeah, it's more of a question for the town council. The HCA agreements allow a limit on how much cultivation can be done on the site. Will the town consider putting a limit on how much it can be produced at each of the sites? You guys got to think about the out years, like any limit that the town wants to put.
So there currently is no limit in the host community agreement. If the board were interested in considering that, we can amend.
Is there any in the law?
No.
I think that's something ought to be considered.
I don't even know if the planning board could do that. They're special permit level. I
Yeah,
think even at the planning board level, it's all about the site and not about the intensity of what's happening inside. So
Typically, we don't regulate
Businesses?
how much product any business can produce, just their hours of operation and that sort of thing.
Okay, so that's not an aspect that we,
Only if it impacts public health or.
Mining operations are oftentimes licensed with, the amount you can haul out, and the amount of truck trips, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something you want to consider,
observable things like that.
it's not,
Not internal.
Even tonnage.
yeah, it's not disallowed. It wouldn't be disallowed. It's your agreement, and if you want to include it, you can.
Who does the enforcement of it?
what do you set the limit at?
And where do you set the limit?
I mean, I like where your head's at though, we wanna find
I mean,
something
you have
that,
the data on percentage, right? That was presented here, that certain percentage of the population will be using these, whatever is being produced. And so based on that, you can project out the areas that will be requiring that, and you can set a limit. The town can consider putting a limit on how much it can be produced.
That could be affected by question 4 of the election.
Well,
that's another, okay, thank you. All right, any other points, questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Actually, can you just ask one more question?
No, that's all right. I'll second the motion, to close. Second the motion to close.
So moved and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we just closed the public hearing. Okay, so board, thoughts? Any thoughts?
I'll go up first. Okay, go ahead. Listening to both petitioners, as far as the host community agreement is concerned, I think personally, I like the sanctuary piece in regards to the $5,000 to charity and the 150 man-hours. I think that's a good bonus. Shows a commitment to the town. I have concerns as far as, when you look at both operations, I have concerns with the mission in regards to security and just that. You know, you have greenhouses and we have brick and mortar. It's a personal thing. I just don't think that, for me, it would be as secure as the Taylor Street site, so I'm going with sanctuary.
Okay, and you already
That's my
stated
opinion.
at the beginning you were headed for one anyway? so-
Yes, that's I would only vote for one.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
I'll take a stab at it, keeping in mind that at the end of this process, planning board still has to
Yes.
act on it. I'm not opposed to either one of them on merit and would support, non-opposed letter for each of them, knowing that at the end of the day, it's only gonna be one anyway. But I hear the points Jim made too, and, if that's the direction the board decides to go in, I can support that, but frankly, I'm not sure there's enough distinction between the two of them in my mind to deny one at the benefit of the other. But I'm open to everyone else's argument.
Very good, thank you. Mr.
Want me to go, Joe? Sure. All right, so just looking purely at the numbers. So Sanctuary came with 50 year one, 50 year two, 75, 75, 3 and 4, 100 there, 100 in the fifth year and thereafter, which gets us in year 5 to $350,000. Looking at the same math with Mission, 25 year one, 50 year two, 75 year 3, 100,000 year 4. That gets us every year thereafter. That gets us to 350 in year 5 as well. One of the concerns I have is, I think October is a pretty aggressive date, but I'm not going to question you're the professional there, and I have some concerns as to whether or not, when the clock starts, I guess, is my concern with when we start resetting, because until they turn the knob, the key, and start operating, we don't, until they get the certificate of occupancy, that's when we start receiving on the HCA. So, year 1 and 2, well, year 1 will be with Sanctuary, assuming, actually, I didn't ask the question of Sanctuary. What is your proposed?
We anticipate, starting a build out hopefully in January. And we anticipate in New Hampshire, it took 3 months and we're operational. We got our CO. Down here, I'm gonna say it's gonna take a little bit longer, 4 to 5 months max. And, we plan on submitting our dispensary, as well as if we get selected to go forward in this town, the cultivation site plan and letters of support / non-opposition to DPH within the next couple of weeks. So
So you're looking at May, June?
May, June, yep. I'd love to open the first dispensary in July. But that would mean that we'd have to, it takes 4 to 5 months, right, to cultivate and bring everything in. So I'd say realistically July, August, if we can fast track this and really start in January.
To Jim's point, the $5,000 a year to a local charity is very enticing to me. 150 hours, man-hours from the employees in the community. From the very beginning, I will say that in our first meetings with both parties, Sanctuary, it was kind of like we were talking about earlier with the tips and the EDIP. They didn't wait for us to ask them about a host community agreement. They immediately started saying, we want to be a part of the community, we want to get active in the community, we want to work on education. So that was enticing to me as well, and it's written right into the HCA. So that's something that that would sway me towards sanctuary as well, pretty heavily. The other concern I have is, we had a date and a deadline for receiving an HCA, and Tom, you could probably tell me whether or not we received anything in the form of an HCA within the timeline that we requested it from both parties.
Right, so I think you wanted them both a week ago Friday, and we got an HCA from Sanctuary, we got a letter from Mission highlighting their terms. And then Keith and I had a conversation with Mission last week, and they turned their letter to HCA this past Friday.
And Sanctuary submitted a revised host community agreement. The one that you have in front of you tonight is not the one that was submitted by that deadline.
After we submitted ours. Isn't that right, Keith? Their original agreement didn't have those terms in it.
I don't recall that, I don't recall whether, I thought they wrote the agreement.
So I'll take that, I'll take that off the table. So regardless of, so let's assume we have two HCA's in front of us. I will say that, again, going back to that initial meeting, again, Sanctuary came to the table and said, we want to be part of your community. And Andrew, I'll put it right out there, you called us extortionists when we even mentioned the word host community agreement. You said that's extortion. And we talked about the Sopranos, and it's, you can laugh if you want to, but it doesn't sit well with me for you to, I mean, you're coming into our community looking to.
My host agreement was double theirs.
You didn't submit a host agreement when we requested it.
Okay.
So you're considering this extortion from the get-go. So if I'm going with my gut, I'll tell the board right now, my vote is 100% behind Sanctuary because these folks came to us with their best foot forward and wanted to be part of the community. And we got called extortionists for even asking for a host community agreement in the very first meeting.
That was a joke.
Selectman Max.
I think from the very beginning, one of the concerns that people had expressed to me was about the security. And as far as Sanctuary goes, I'm more comfortable with the building that they're in and everything that they propose. That's one. I'm impressed with the way that they do the operation as far as water usage goes. And overall, having the Rochester Police Chief come in and make the statements that he did and how strong he felt about how they ran things and how tight it was, it eased my mind and some other people that had the same concern, so I'm leaning towards Sanctuary.
Okay, very good. That leaves me. So I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I don't think I have a unique thought beyond what you've said, and that is I don't oppose either of you, but I have the same gut feel in the sense that Mr. DeCoste shared. I got a different sense of wanting to be a community player from you guys right off the bat. Now, you've been wonderful, all the way around, and if we look at it, the differentiating factors are exactly what was mentioned, 100 man-hours, 500 local nonprofit charity work, and things are by and large the same now. So, you know where I'm at in the sense that if I had to pick one and go with my gut, I know that I would go with Sanctuary. I'm not opposed to going with two. So if there's no more discussion, I'd look for a motion.
Go ahead. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve one host community agreement for proposed medical marijuana cultivation site located within the town's registered marijuana dispensary RMD overlay district as follows. Sanctuary Medicinals Incorporated for 234 Taylor Street, map R09-34-0.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Not 8A, policy amendment, introduce procurement of supplies and services. So Keith, we haven't had a chance to talk about this actually. This is
We're on 8A.
Yes,
Yeah,
8A,
awesome.
procurement of supplies and
What we're
services.
looking to do is to introduce an amendment to the procurement policy to have the board's policy match what is about to be a change in state law that takes effect on November 7th, increasing the threshold for sealed bids from 35 to 50,000.
Okay, guys, we gotta, sorry, it's hard to hear, we gotta have a focus up here. Go ahead, Keith, sorry.
So Bonnie has requested that the board amend the procurement policy to match what the new state law will be as of November 7th, when the Municipal Modernization Act takes effect. And the way you deal with policy amendments, you receive them, or we introduce them at one meeting, and then at the subsequent meeting, you vote to approve them. So this change would bring the board's policy in line with what the new law will be as of November 7th.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
Aligning with the future. Any questions, comments?
I got it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
You want me to hold it?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to receive draft amendments to the procedure for procurement of supplies and services, disposal of surplus town-owned property, supplies policy to increase requirements for the purchase of supplies and services from $5,000 to $10,000, a minimum amount for quotes, and from $35,000 to $50,000 as a minimum amount for sealed bids, respectively, to conform with the Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016 and Act Modernizing Municipal Finance and Government, which takes effect November 7, 2016, and to schedule the adoption thereof at the board's next regular meeting on
Said date.
said date.
November 7th.
It's been moved and
Second.
seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Minutes approval. So who drafted the minutes here? We've got September 7th, 12th, and October 3rd. Where did they come from?
So I did October 3rd, and then I think
Jen did as a contractor of services, did the other two.
Thank you, Jen,
She's a good
and
kid.
thank you, Clancy, on your first set of meetings.
In fact, she's available as an on-call secretary for other
Matters.
town boards, and we have a need for that.
Oh, that's
For anyone
awesome.
who's at home who would like to take minutes, send us a card.
Yes, yes, meeting minute takers.
On the minutes for the 12th, it is mentioned at the end there that the amendment I had made was to incorporate the matrix of goals and objectives into the meeting minutes for August 4th and 22nd. That taken place?
Yes.
Yes, okay, fine. I wasn't present for the meeting on the, whatever it was, October 3rd, so I don't know if it's important to take two separate votes or what.
Still go for that.
I wasn't around for the, which didn't mean I missed one too.
You watched it on TV, though, you're okay. You watched it streaming from Pittsburgh.
I watched October 3rd. I didn't see that.
Tom, we're okay if folks were,
Yeah, you don't need to have been at the meeting.
yeah.
All right, so I'll move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of September 7th, 2016, September 12th, 2016, and October 3rd, 2016.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, last item. We are going into executive session and not coming back out again.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A, 6, to go into executive session and consider the value of real property, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect to the board's negotiating position relative to the Joyce Williams property at 31 Boxborough Road, and not to convene in open session thereafter.
Second.
friendly note, you are coming out, but only for the purposes of adjournment.
Oh,
Okay.
but we say we're not.
But we always say that we're not convening, not reconvening in open session thereafter.
Yeah.
Well, you still adjourn, so you're not gonna discuss anything.
So we can adjourn the,
The main meeting.
So the cameraman has to stick around though until we're done?
No.
Oh, okay,
No.
okay.
okay,
So,
what he said, second.
so
you get
roll
that,
call
Clancy?
vote. Ms. Scott? Mr. Scott?
Aye.
Like a new
Me,
rolling.
aye.
Aye.
Mr. Yeah, you.
Aye.
All right.
Madam Chief.
I got this.
Good night.
Executive session.
Night, chief.
Thank you all.
Say good
Thank
night,
you
Dick.
all.